Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Son of Gabriel and Lucifer movie. Before we start, please go support Alessandro Gonzalez 54 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Son of Gabriel, the strongest seraph of heaven, and of Lucifer, one of the four mouths. Product of a great being hated and abhorred by all. Prologue. A little boy was staring into space. His eyes were empty. Blood was coming out of his eyes, staining his beautiful face. Hair as white as snow. His skin was pale from the enormous loss of blood, but what stood out the most was that he had two pairs of wings. One was white, giving him the impression that he is an angel. The other is that he also had a bat wing like a demon. The little boy's torso was uncovered. Blood was running down his back where he had two very large wounds. The wings that were on the ground belonged to the boy. He tried to speak, but his cries of pain didn't reach anywhere, leaving the boy alone against the world. Years back, Gabriel had been raped by Lucifer, who took advantage of the moment when she was weak due to the constant battles she was having. She was found by her brother Michael. Before, she didn't hate her brother Lucifer for betraying their father, but now she would do what he didn't do. When he was revealed, she would kill him in the cruelest way possible. They both went to heaven, where they tried to hide the humiliation and trauma from Gabriel, who now felt disgusted. She had seen humans suffer this type of treatment, but she never imagined that she would suffer the same, much less someone she considered a good brother. Elohim looked sadly at his daughter. He hated himself for being weak and not being able to protect his daughter. While Michael looked for a way to kill Lucifer, memories came to Elohim's mind when everything was peace and happiness, those moments where his children laughed and had fun. He wished everything would go back to how it was before, but in the end, the reality is that the past cannot be changed. The days went by for Gabriel, and he realized that something would change his life forever. He was pregnant. This ended up destroying the seraphim, refusing to have that child. Michael and the other seraphim were surprised because they thought she would never be pregnant, but her father just nodded his head in confirmation. This caused them to become enraged, seeking and trying to fight Lucifer at all costs. Gabriel tried to get rid of that child, but her father God did not allow her to do something crazy. He wanted his daughter to smile again and firmly believed that his son would achieve what he longed for, without knowing that this little boy would become a very important person in the future. Months later, Gabriel gave birth to a little boy with snow-white hair and sky-blue eyes like Lucifer's before he became a demon. Elohim smiled at the boy, who smiled at him. God, what name will you give him? God asked his daughter, who looked with disgust at the little boy, who this day held his little arms to her, knowing that she is his mother. Gabriel, I'm not interested, he said as he turned around, leaving the child crying. Elohim looked sadly at the child. He couldn't give him a name yet, because if he gave him the name, that child would end up becoming an adult. But he knew that he possessed demonic energy and sacred power. If he gave him the name, he would end up killing the child. As the years passed, the child grew up. Elohim feared that the child would resemble his father, being cold and psychopathic, but he resembled his mother when she was still a kind and gentle woman. Gabriel never liked the child, who often approached his mother to try to make her smile, and did not give him a look of hatred and despise as he always did. Elohim spent some of his time with the child wherever he was. He taught him to read and write. After all, he was his first grandson, and as the years went by, the child always showed a smile even when everything went wrong. Even though he didn't have a name, they always referred to him as, "Hey you," although some even called him bastard, something that hurt the child greatly, but God personally banished those who hurt his grandson. Present. You could see a child sitting comfortably on a cloud looking at the humans with the mothers who interacted with their children, either playing or educating them. Oh, the little one admiring everything and taking notes to perhaps ask his mother, and do the same, also looked at tentatively as the parents hugged among the family. He watched as mothers called their children, and saw how some who were born received names from the mother or the father. Because I don't have a name, the boy questioned himself sadly as he got up and went to the sixth heaven to look for his mother. On the way, he received glances from all the angels, but no one dared to insult him in his prescience, or even speak to the god. The boy entered the elevator. Upon reaching the sixth heaven, there were not many angels, because this was the place of the archangels. Going further inside, the child came across several archangels who looked at the child coldly, making the child feel uncomfortable, and his small body trembled due to their imposing prescience. In that, the child meets a beautiful purple-haired woman. Excuse me, do you know where I can find my mother? He asked nervously, and the boy shuddered at the look the woman gave him. So you're looking for Gabriel, she said coldly. While the little one nodded nervously. Wait here, said the woman coldly before leaving in another direction. He watched nervously and somewhat fearfully as the other archangels passed a few meters away, some ignoring them and others staring at them coldly, knowing who it was. He looked at a flower that was growing. While the child, out of curiosity, walked towards the flower, however, before reaching it, he collided with a person. The boy fell silent, making a small moan of pain, and then looked at a man with blonde hair and blue eyes. He knew him better than anyone. The only one of all the angels in heaven he knew when he was with his grandfather smiled at him, but now he looked at him with hatred. Uncle, said the boy, relieved but afraid of the blonde's gaze. What are you doing here, said the blonde coldly. While the boy stood up and looked at the blonde. I'm waiting for Mom, a pretty young lady went to get her, he said nervously while the blonde continued looking coldly. Silence ruled the whole place while a few long uncomfortable moments for the little one to then see the purple-haired girl accompanied by a blonde. The boy showed a smile as he approached. Mom! The boy greeted happily, forgetting his fear, but then the blonde looked at the boy and gave him a cold look, then continued talking and walking, ignoring the boy. The boy ran towards the women, whoever stayed behind her, who continued talking because the boy's grandfather told him that he never has to interfere in other people's conversations. We will go to the human world as father ordered. Do you have everything ready, Gabriel? Said the purple-haired girl seriously, although somewhat annoyed by the child's prescience. Are you going to the human world? I want to go, he shouted excitedly, calling their attention. Both of them looked at each other coldly, but a smile appeared on Gabriel's face. Gabriel, good, because you are not going to tidy up your things. The boy nodded and ran away quickly. The little one quickly got to the elevator and then got off to prepare his things, while the purple-haired girl looked confused at Gabriel. You know that we are still at war, right? He asked his sister, who still had a smile on her face. Gabriel calmed down. Sadalfin, a great idea just came to me, he answered as they continued walking while his sister sighed and continued walking. Michael saw all this, but he had already had an idea of what Gabriel would do. However, he didn't bother to say anything and left to continue with his own. Chapter 1. The little boy kept his things in a small backpack with a face full of happiness since he could finally fulfill his dream of finally being able to go to the human world, where he reviewed everything if he already had everything ready to go to the human world. He went to the first floor of heaven. When he arrived, he sat near the elevator to wait for his mother. He was there because he forgot to ask where they would meet. I'll ask Mom for a name, said the determined boy. He had asked his grandfather for one, but it seems that his mother could give it to him. I was already tired of how they always called him. Hey you. A couple of hours later, Gabriel made an appearance along with Sandalfon, who, upon seeing the child, showed an annoyed face. But the blonde had a plan, which was to get rid of the child. That mistake that tormented her. The little one approaches with a smile. I'm ready, Mom, he said excitedly, but the women ignored him and passed by his side. The little boy thought that you were also excited to go to the human world, so he followed them. The angels guarding the gates of heaven looked at the little boy. They had orders not to let him leave alone, but they saw that he was accompanied by 2 archangels, so they simply ignored this fact and let him pass. Gabriel looked at the little boy out of the corner of his eye. She really didn't want to go with him, although just thinking about getting rid of him was satisfying. They walked calmly in the light. She returned to the boy, who became excited. Where did they disappear and go to the human world? They appeared in a forest near a village. Gabriel and Sandalfon began to walk towards the village while the little one looked surprised at the place, and saw how his mother walked away with the other woman where she was. He ran towards them so as not to be left behind. Mom, why don't I have a name? Asked the boy. So mother ignored the boy while Sandalfo looked at the boy from her shoulder, but also ignored him. Could you give me a name? Could you give me a name? He asked again while Gabriel frowned but continued walking. Before the little one could ask again, he was amazed by what he saw in front of him. There was a village where he could see a lot of stalls. The boy was amazed by what he was seeing, all while Gabriel and Sandalfon continued walking towards the church. Look, Mom. An orange, said the boy, taking an orange and running towards his mother to show her the orange. Hey kid, you have to pay for that, said a clearly annoyed male voice. Gabriel was interested because Asia could get rid of that monster. However, the man, upon seeing the beauty of Gabriel and Sandalfon, was completely stunned. while he took 2 oranges and gave them to the little one. "Take this for yourself." The child was happy. Taking the oranges with a smile, he thanked the man and then went to his mother, who just clicked her tongue. The little boy had offered an orange to 2 women who just ignored him, making the boy feel sad. He watched as several children walked hand in hand with their mother. He thought for a moment, and then put the oranges in his backpack and then looked at his mother's hand a little nervously. His little body shuddered and he didn't know if he could take her hand or not. In the end, he didn't dare to do it because he didn't want his mother to get angry with him. He wanted to see her smile. He did something he could never do. In the end, they arrived at the church where both archangels entered, where the little boy felt very uncomfortable since he felt very much in heaven where he didn't fit in. Gabriel and Sandalphon spoke with the person in charge of the church. While the little boy walked around the village, he entertained himself playing with some dogs and cats, as well as playing with some children who invited him to play. After playing, the little boy realized it was late and ran to the church. "Sandalphon, are you sure you want to leave him?" he asked his sister, who smiled as she left the church. "Gabriel, I can't stand your presence anymore," he answered. While both disappeared in a flash of light, in a few moments the child had already made a presence in the church. He hesitated whether to enter or not, but in the end he entered and saw a strange image of a crucified person in front of all the pews. He looked everywhere looking for his mother, but he didn't find her. Then he saw a man wearing a black tunic, and when he saw him he was surprised. "Are you looking for something small?" I asked while he was alone, nodding his head. "I'm looking for my mother. She was here when I went for a walk in the village," the boy answered. The man looked confused until he blinked several times. "She was here a few moments ago, but she left," he said, surprising the boy, who ran away before the man could do anything. He ran all over the village and couldn't find her. His grandfather would get angry with him for having left his mother and gotten lost. He began to wander all over the village to see if he was lucky enough to find his mother. Shortly after a couple of hours, night had finally fallen, and now the village had its terrifying appearance, something that the child did not like. Some men looked at the child with mocking smiles, as well as a bit evil. He arrived at a bench. He sat down and then took an orange he had saved out of his backpack. He was a little hungry. He had seen humans eating oranges. With the tip of a brush, he made a hole in the middle. He peeled the orange. "It seems you've gotten lost," little one said, a male voice, where the child turned around to see a black-haired man. "No, so just I'm waiting for my mom," the little boy excused himself, since this guy didn't give him a good feeling, so he started to back away. While the man smiled. "You're not going anywhere," said the man. He took out 2 pairs of angel wings, but unlike the normal ones, these were black. Present. This brings us to the present moment, where the little one had his entire body covered in wounds. The fallen angel had ripped them off and completely injured him. He even took his backpack to prevent him from healing and contacting his kind. The little one tried to stand up and kissed him multiple times, but it was impossible due to the multiple wounds he had. Tears began to flow from his cheeks. Little by little he fell to the ground with a loud bang, his eyes slowly closing. While he was alone, he thought about feeling cold, as he slowly closed his eyes, wishing that everything had been a dream. The light hit his face. He seemed to have woken up. His eyes opened heavily. Almost immediately he felt a throbbing pain run through his entire body. Every muscle, every bone, every fiber of his being was overwhelmed by pain. He then remembered what happened earlier, and tears began to form in his eyes. In coughs this and wait, remember everything that was alive, because his mother hated him and that he saw one of his wings that were of a demon, and that something clicked in the mind of the child. Now he knew why his mother hated him. No, that woman was not his mother. Maybe she gave birth to him, but she was never his mother. He had always insulted him, hit him at every opportunity he had, calling it a mistake, never wanted to give him a name, never showed him a sign of love. He didn't even care about him. He never meant more to her than an insect. Not even they received better treatment than him. The same thing happened with the other angels. Everyone despised them, looked at them with their ears and insulted them every time they saw them. Great for being light takers, what irony. It was there that he understood the world was rotten. Everyone makes the same senseless mistake. First, the supernatural beings believed themselves to be powerful beings because they had power, where they see humans as simple pests for them. But humans were beings who made that mistake, but always sought to fix that mistake. That's why humans were strange beings. Using his willpower to crawl across the land towards a small lake nearby, He used the water to clean his wounds, and clean off the dirt that was on him. His clothes were all stained and somewhat torn, so the boy started to tear the top part to use it as bandages. His body was strong, he knew it, but in his current state, he would be easy prey for any beast or supernatural being that attacked him. Carefully he had to walk through the forest. Every time he moved he felt enormous pain, but now he didn't care. His goal was to heal. I think I should look for something to cover myself, said the boy. In this, he hunted with great difficulty, killing several wild animals and then removing their skin to make clothes. He learned this from humans by watching how they held their clothes. I'd better get out of here, said the boy, who started walking again. Now he was ready. He set out on his course. He had a new objective, but he was still too weak. He still needed a couple more things so he could move freely, for now he would live hidden before everyone. In the sky, Gabriel was at home. He was happy. He was finally able to get rid of that mistake. Gabriel, I'm finally free, said Gabriel alone. The blonde's emotion was evident, something she hadn't shown in a long time. Her greatest wish was finally fulfilled. She had finally been freed from that master, according to her. It was her father who forced her to take care of the child, but now it was not necessary. And if someone asked, she would say that he ran away from home, although she doubted that anyone would ask about him. Gabriel Sama, a voice was heard behind her. Gabriel, is something wrong? I asked. Father is calling her, said the man. Gabriel, tell him I'll be there in a moment, he replied. Understood, said the man who had left. Minutes later. Gabriel, did you call me father? I asked. In front of her there was a guy with white hair and a huge white beard. His whole being radiated a light that was calming just by his presence. God, tell me, Gabriel, where is Issei? He said seriously. The blood froze the blonde at that moment. The look her father was giving her was disappointment, reproach, but more than anything sadness. Gabriel, be you well, go, you'll see, said Gabriel, unable to think of an excuse. God, you know, when the child was born, I was very surprised. I thought he would be just like his father, but he turned out to be just like you, said the man. Gabriel, pa, father, and I said Gabriel. God, don't call me father, he said seriously, making Gabriel start to shed a few tears. I had never seen a child as pure as him, always so smiling, seeing the best in everyone around him. Not even they themselves did it, he said. The blonde could no longer say anything. She knew she couldn't lie to him. God, I could have raised you, but I had hopes that someday you could change. I hoped that you would be able to see the wonderful child that you had, although yours. That's why I left him with you, he said, but I see that I was wrong. You let yourself be carried away by senseless hatred and you condemned an innocent person to live a martyrdom. The only thing he wanted was for you to appreciate him and accept him, but in return he received hatred and repulsion, he said seriously while his eyes shone golden. Tears began to fall from the eyes of the blonde, who began to remember all the times the albino tried to approach her, and how she ignored him and insulted him and hit him. She hadn't even defended him when other angels had hit him. God, sigh. It's regrettable, he said as he approached the blonde and stood in front of her. Gabriel, daughter of God, you have betrayed a mandate. With your ignorance you have led a peaceful and innocent being to horror and desolation, he said as he took two emblems and tore them off. The young woman said nothing. She kept crying in silence while listening to her father. God, you are not worthy of your position. You are not worthy of your title. No, you are worthy of the loved one you just betrayed. He shouted angrily, and now I relieve you of your position, and in the name of the Son of the Holy Spirit, I, Jehovah the Father, I condemn you to confinement until further notice, he said. Gabriel, pa, father of, let me go to earth to still can I, but he was interrupted. God, enough. What you've already done is done. I've already sent some angels to bring it, he said angrily. The blonde was devastated and went home crying, regardless of the confused looks of some angels. When he arrived home, he saw a small room. If he remembered correctly, it was the child's room. Trembling, he entered the apartment, amazed by the large number of drawings that were there and the ornaments that decorated the entire apartment. A small basket had caught the woman's attention, and she approached. There was a beautiful crown next to a pearl necklace, and a drawing of a blonde woman and an albino child with a small note. To the best mom in the world. The blonde fell to the ground in the middle of heartbreaking tears. Now she understood her mistake. Every memory of all her mistreatment of the little boy was a stab in the woman's heart. Gabriel, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, said Gabriel between sobs. Chapter 3. Seconds turned into minutes, minutes, days, days, weeks, weeks, months, months, years, years, decades. The little boy grew up strong. Those shining blue eyes, that messy white hair and that innocent smile were left behind. He seemed lifeless, he had a cold and indifferent expression. All along, he had sought ways to become stronger, learning as much as possible in every place he went. Strangely enough, he discovered that he was very capable. His magical ability was enormous, and his ability to learn spells was top-notch. In many of his trips he had taken care of several demons, fallen angels, etc. until he came across a witch who cursed him, turning him into a little boy. Since that day he has focused a lot on his training, where he managed to learn to control his demonic powers and angel powers. Although his greatest achievement was to create a death curse which allows him to steal the vital life of everything around him, which causes every living being that he was around to lose their lives immediately, like Zeref from Fairy Tale. But he also realized something. It was impossible. It was impossible after all. For a moment he had thought he would ever be accepted in the world. If he tried really hard, maybe things would have worked out. It would probably be difficult and complicated, but I might have been able to do it, I thought. However, the world chose to reject him after all, and it was in the lowest possible way. But not everything was lost. They still believed it could change. They thought of one way or another to bring peace, but he was wrong. His gaze now reflected the obstacles and the heartbreak that never ended, and they stuck it in his heart like a dagger, engraving his life full of shadows, without a ray of light to illuminate them, getting used to the shadows and darkness. Every day I watched the scenes filled with blood, all because of their stupid wars, where innocent people were caught in the crossfire, children, babies, elderly, women and men, all dead. In the midst of all that carnage, he was a lonely dreamer of peace in the middle of a stupid, voracious war that devoured everything in its path. No matter how hard he tried, he was unable to find anyone to help him. He never had friends who could give him hope for his harsh existence. Every day he saw countless innocent people die, felt the indescribable pain of all those who suffered, and mourned their losses. Finally his heart hardened. All traces of love no longer existed in him. Only a great anguish in his being, like the greatest blow of his unjust life. Gone is that child who dreamed of stopping the war, that unnecessary bloodshed. The darkness finally managed to consume him. I was fed up with the centuries I had seen the hatred of the world, not only of humans but also of angels, demons, fallen angels and yokais. Finally he came to a conclusion. They were all doomed. They had no salvation, all that was left for them to be destroyed. So he decided to get away from it all, hoping the world would come to an end. Empty was the perfect word I felt. I had lost count of how many times she cried, thinking, remembering, regretting. His heart seemed to break when he found out the truth and saw his son's wings in his father's hands, who just cried. Almost immediately I go down to the human world crying. I look for it everywhere, but all she found was a small pool of her son's blood where she had fallen on her knee. I never wanted this. She repeated it daily, but still the damage was done. No matter how much she cried or complained, he would not come back. Loneliness was the only thing left. Several centuries enough for someone to change. She had to learn a hard lesson, knowing the desire to save someone and a loved one along with the fear and pain that comes from losing them. His father had told him that love is the only thing that can heal the wounds of the soul. He understood that the most important thing was to value life and have a pious heart. Although unfortunately for her the courage and compassion of having lost her son. In this way, that fierce warrior disappeared. Her desire to fight and destroy her enemies was left behind. Now she longed for peace and denied violence. She had become kinder, more understanding, but her pains still remained. Every day I saw the humans. I witnessed how all the women interacted with their children, bringing out a melancholic smile in me. Watching from afar how they experienced a happiness that she once had and did not know how to value. A happiness that you would never be able to feel again. Present. In the middle of the night, a woman who was dressed in a skirt with only stockings that reached her knees and some heels on, where on her torso she was wearing only a black leather jacket. She was walking straight home after coming from the house of one of her night clients. While I was walking I received looks of disgust from some women and obscene looks from some men. The woman simply didn't care about anything. She was already used to this. She had slept with so many guys, some married, others single, black, Asian. All of them were the same, always doing a service to a man, but like any other woman I always felt empty. For years she always dreamed of having a son or daughter. She wanted to know what it feels like to have someone who keeps you company, who always makes you smile, and to watch them grow. She always dreamed of starting a family, but her dreams vanished when she was diagnosed as sterile. It was what hit her the hardest and had fallen into a deep depression. But thanks to her friends at work she was able to move forward, but she always felt empty. But before she reaches a corner she stops, and then looks down an alley where she sees something that catches her attention. At that point she started to go further into the alley, and then saw behind a trash can an albino child who was covered in blood. That surprised the woman, who did not hesitate, and took the little one in her arms, where she carried him and started running towards her home. The woman had already arrived at a somewhat ruined hotel, at which point the woman entered the building and then began to go up. In that she arrives in an apartment, and then enters that. When she enters inside she can hear some moans. But she focused on the child, where she places the little boy on an armchair, and then goes to the bathroom. Then she comes out of the bathroom with a first aid kit, and then goes to heal the little boy. Several minutes have passed, and then a beautiful dark-skinned woman appears next to a long-haired man. "Hey Angela, who is the boy?" asked the short-haired woman. At that Angela realizes who had spoken to her. It was her best friend along with her friend, who were looking at the violet-haired girl who kept caressing the albino's hair. "Angela, I don't know. I found him in a drawer all hurt. I don't know who could have done something like that to the child," she answered with a sad expression. "Do you think Alan abandoned the child or kidnapped him this time?" It was the man who approached the child and then, in spite of it, touched his forehead to see if he had a fever. "Angela, who would be capable of doing something like that? Not even I would be capable of it. I may be a prostitute, but I would never leave a child on the street," she said. At that, the little albino started to open his eyes little by little. At that, the three adults realized that the child was waking up and moved away a little. At that moment, the albino child had already woken up. He started to feel something soft on his back and then looked around the whole place. He realized that someone was watching him. He turned his head to see three adults. At that, the boy gets up from the chair while he stands up to see his body, where he sees that it was all bandaged. At that moment the boy stands up to take off his bandages, but Angela takes the little boy's arm. "Angela, hey, don't do that. You're all wrong," she said. "She's serious about that." The boy simply looks at her, letting his blue eyes show to the woman, who just instinctively lets go of the boy. In that, the boy ends up taking off the bandages to shock those present. The boy, where they saw the boy who had no wounds, not even a scar. "Where are my clothes?" asked the boy, looking at the woman. "Angela, hey, don't you have a mother or father or any relatives?" she asked, ignoring the child's question. "No, I don't have anyone and I don't need anyone," he said stoically while he was in a hurry to walk towards the door, but before he got there the man grabbed him by the shoulder. "Hey kid, don't you want to stay and eat here today?" asked the kid. He just tilted his head in confusion. Well was the only thing he said. At that, Angela gives a shirt to the little boy, who puts it on. After eating, everyone was watching how the child had remained still while the brunette woman was cutting his hair since he had it very long. "Angela, hey, do you have a name?" she asked, only to receive a "no" from the boy. "You don't have anyone?" she asked again, but the boy denied it again. After several minutes the boy was about to leave but was stopped again by Angela, who was looking at the boy. "Angela, you don't want to stay with me?" said with a smile on her face, surprising all the two adults. The child saw this curious thing. "Why do you want me to stay with you? You don't even know what I am," he answered, leaving those present with doubts. "Angela, what do you mean by what you are?" she said. At that the boy steps back a few steps and then spreads his enormous wings. One was of a bat, and the other was of an angel. That left those present surprised. While the child kept his wings spinning, the child turned around and in his heart he wanted to walk away, but then he felt like someone had hugged him. When the child felt the embrace, a strange sanction was felt by the child, that sensation that he had lost for many years, a warm sanction. "Angela, I don't know what happened to you, but I know that you didn't see an easy life, so please allow me to be your mother," the woman pleaded, while she was shedding tears. That comment shocked the child. For the first time in his entire existence, he felt loved. "But I was afraid. Fear of going through the same thing again. Fear of being rejected again like that woman did." But something in him said he could trust that woman if he realized he was unconsciously shedding tears. "How could you know if you wouldn't do the same to me?" said the boy in a low voice so that only the woman could hear. "Angela, I promise you that I will never leave you alone," she said while hugging the child. "I will be there for you. I will be there when you need someone to listen to you. I will be there when you need to cry. I will help you. I will never leave you alone, my little boy," she said while turning the child around. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. The boy hugged the woman tightly while he started to cry, just like the woman. "Angela, now my little one, No one will hurt you again, my little Issei, she said with a beautiful maternal smile. Chapter 4. Pip pip. The alarm sounded and an albino boy could be seen lying down, who was slowly opening his eyes, revealing light blue eyes. As the boy got out of bed, he rubbed his eyes and then turned off the alarm, stood up, and started walking straight to the bathroom. When he got to the bathroom, he started to dive, where on his back you could see some huge scars covering his back. Sigh, another day, said the albino boy, who was getting into the bath and starting to take a shower. In the sky you could see a beautiful woman with blonde hair who was getting up from her bed, where she simply looks at the room, where she gives a sad sigh. How many years have passed already? She always wondered every day. There wasn't a day that she didn't wonder what would have happened if she hadn't made that decision. I always looked at that room where that valuable thing for the woman should be. She always dreamed of how she and her son played and laughed. But every time she opened her eyes, she saw that harsh reality again. That loneliness that she couldn't get out of her head. Pain, sad, hate. She felt Asian. There wasn't a day that she didn't remember what she herself had decided. At that moment the doors began to ring. Come in, she said, as the door to her home opens and a beautiful woman enters. This was Sandalphon. She had seen Gabriel many times. She felt sorry for that angel who was once a noble warrior who had no mercy against anyone, and now seeing him in this deplorable state. Of course, she also felt guilty for not having stopped her that time. She felt guilty, but when her father died there, she learned the most important lesson of her life. It was that child was never to blame for anything. His father himself told them. His children had all celebrated that day. He still remembers well those words that made all the angels see them as simple scum. Flask. You could see all the angels were all gathered in the plaza of heaven, where everyone sees how God stands in front of everyone, where they remain silent. Cough, you're wondering about the convonk to everyone here, right? He asked, while everyone answered with a yes. Well, the reason is that my nephew Gabriel's son just died, he said sadly while lowering his head. Silence. That was what reigned in the place until suddenly they began to hear applause. Yes, was the cry of all the angels, who began to celebrate happily while applauding. God, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Everyone was celebrating and laughing. Seriously, this is what he thought. He couldn't believe that his children would celebrate the death of one of their own. That's when he realized something. That no one is a perfect being. Just like Lucifer, who was the best and purest angel, he had evil in his heart. Now he knows that if he were to die, humans would most likely suffer some consequences. God just listened as the angels celebrated until suddenly he unleashed all his power at once. How is this possible? God shouted while everyone became silent and trembled with fear. Tell me, did he ever do something to you? He shouted while tears came out of his eyes. The angels did not respond, they remained silent. I see, God whispered. Tell me why they hated my nephew so much. Because he was the son of Lucifer? He asked. Nobody responded. You know, when he was born I thought he would be just like his father, but what a surprise I got when I saw him, he said while remembering the baby. He had such a pure and good soul, he said. You know the reason why all of you Yamas fell like Angela, he said while everyone got nervous, because he asked me not to do it even though you despised him. He had always forgiven all of you crying. The angels at that moment began to remember everything they had done to him and realized the truth. He was always smiling despite being despised by everyone. That made everyone feel like the worst trash that ever existed. I see that you already remembered, said God. I'll just say this, either so angel nor so demon. Most of us dance on both sides, said God to the angels. Michael prepares the troops. We will end this war today, he ordered seriously. While the blonde man was leaving, and a flashback. Since that day things had changed quite a bit in heaven. Many angels came to apologize to Gabriel, but she always responded with the same thing. You don't have to ask me for forgiveness, you have to ask him for forgiveness. She always answered everyone the same. Sigh. Gabriel, Michael sent for you, Sandalphon said seriously while looking at the blonde. Tell him I'll come right away, she said while holding a letter in her arm. Sandalphon left without saying a word, leaving the angel alone, who began to shed tears and say the following sentence. Forgive me, son. An albino could be seen walking through the streets of Kuoh's city peacefully, while next to him was a beautiful woman who was accompanied by the boy. Seriously, it wasn't necessary for you to come, said the albino while walking next to the woman. How do you expect me not to come if my son will start his first day of Kuoh High School today? She said with a smile. Also, try to make friends. He's never had any friends, she told him. Sigh. I don't mind forming bonds with someone, I just see them as simple tools. Besides, bonds hurt you and destroy you inside, they make you weak, making anyone trample on you whenever they want. That's human nature, said the albino. While the women remained silent. Issei, she said while the albino stopped. I think you are very cruel. Don't you think, she said while looking at the albino. I'm not cruel, I'm realistic. I was sweet once and I was hurt. I was loving and they didn't value it. I endured more than I had to endure. I endured more than a normal boy would endure. I did things that people wouldn't do for me. I hid my feelings so as not to be hurt again. And I say what I think so that other people also realize other things, said the albino, while he started walking again, while the woman only sees the albino where he is dry, thinking for a few moments. Then he runs towards the albino and hugs them from behind, surprising the albino. For me you will always be my son, Issei. I don't care what you say, but sometimes it is better to release those feelings that bind you and let them bloom, she said with a smile, while hugging the albino tighter. Sigh. Sometimes I don't understand humans, Issei told her while returning the hug, and then both separated and began to walk towards the academy hand in hand. Gabriel could be seen in front of a blond man who looked very similar to her. Why did you call me Michael? Gabriel asked his brother Michael. Well, sister, I wanted to let you know that I'm opening a faction meeting to make a peace treaty with the Indian faction, said Michael. Gabriel is a little surprised. I see, but what does that have to do with me? She asked Michael. I want you to attend the faction meeting. He got straight to the point. At that, Gabriel gets tense because of what Michael just told her, and I can tell. Sister, I know you're afraid of demons, but they're not like the ones before. You have to learn to leave that fear behind. He said seriously. Are you really telling me that? Ami, you don't even know what it feels like to be raped? She replied. Sigh, you're right. I don't know how it feels. But this is the best thing for you to leave behind, this trauma that's tormenting you, sister, he said seriously. Gabriel just stays thinking for a few minutes. Okay, I'll go, bro, she said. While Michael nods. If that's all, I'm leaving, she said. While leaving the room. Once outside, she began to walk towards the exit and then spread her wings and began to fly away. Kuoh Academy. Already at the academy, Issei and his mother had arrived, where both received several looks. First Issei, where several girls his age looked at him with heart-shaped eyes. While the older woman received obscene and hateful looks from men and women, both of them were indifferent to him. Well, Issei-kun, I have to go now, she says goodbye while giving him a kiss on the cheek. Behave yourself, will you? And be friends, she says goodbye. See you, Mother. Issei said goodbye as he began to walk towards the academy. While Issei was walking through the school corridors, he suddenly crossed his eyes with a beautiful woman with long red hair who was accompanied by a brown-haired boy. That was weird, thought the albino, who was on his way to his classroom, which was 2B, when he knocked on the door, and it opened, showing a beautiful white-haired woman. If you want, the woman asked while Issei gave her a paper. So you're new? Well, wait here, I've already introduced you, she said. While Issei just nods. That energy is from a demon. It seems that this territory belongs to the demons. The albino thought seriously about that. The albino listens ahead where he is. He enters. Once inside, when all the women saw who it was, they couldn't help but scream. But they were silenced by the teacher. Well, as you know, he is the new student. Please introduce yourself, said the teacher. My name is Issei Kazuki. I hope we get along well and don't ask any questions, said the albino seriously, and then started walking towards the desk where there was an empty seat. Nice to meet you, Issei-sen, said a female voice. At that, the albino turned around to see a blonde with green eyes. A demon? Thought the albino as he shook the blonde's hand. Nice to meet you, said the albino. Yes, sorry, I'm Asia Argento. Nice to meet you, Issei-san, she said. While the albino just nods. A pleasure, Argento-san, Issei replied calmly. The classes passed normally. Then the bell rang. Wherever he was alone, he puts his things away and starts walking towards the exit, leaving Asia behind, who was with a brown-haired boy. While Issei was walking through the halls of the school, he suddenly stops where he sees someone carrying a stack of papers. This one just runs and continues on his way to the exit. Gabriel was in a beautiful garden full of flowers. While he was looking at the humans, some were playing with their children, others were laughing. Unconsciously, she shed a tear. Gabriel, a female voice, made the blonde turn around to see Sandalphon. Sandalphon, what happened now? She said as she looked back at the humans. At that, the woman approaches Gabriel, where he also begins to look towards the humans. How many centuries have passed since that time? Sandalphon said as he looked at the field full of roses. A lot, sister, she said with a sad tone. You're going to the meeting, right? She asked as she knelt down and looked at the flowers. Yes, I will go. I think it will be better for me to face my trauma with the demons, she said. I see. Sandalphon replied. What do you think would have happened if we had never treated your son like that? She asked. I don't know, sister. Sometimes I ask myself those same questions at night, she answered while looking at the necklace. Sandalphon said nothing more. Instead of tears, a soft song. You can see Issei standing on top of a building while a tear of blood came out of his left eye. And instead of this pain, I need your color. I don't think I could change my world so easily. But even so, now Gabriel was seen sitting on a chair while holding a necklace in her hands and hugging him tightly. I will calmly break this darkness, and I know that I will always try to move forward. Perhaps you will be very close to me. Issei is seen running with a smile towards a beautiful blonde-haired woman who is standing with her arms open. But then the whole place turns dark. My only dream is that you can love me in the way of love that I imagine. Now you could see Issei next to Angela. Both of them were strongly hugged while Issei had a smile. I will always look for her. I don't want to say again that I'm going to give up. The best thing I can do is just count on what's in me. Now Issei was next to a beautiful woman with long brown hair and green eyes. Both were sitting under a beautiful tree watching the leaves fall. There are things that make me fall, and it seems that I will give in. But even so, I made my decision. If I want to fight for you. Now Issei was with a beautiful albino woman with light blue eyes, both walking through the park together. I could make it so that this time, nothing exists anymore that I can stop. Even so, love what I want to find. Beyond the pain, I need your warmth. Now Gabriel could be seen walking through the city as people passed by beside her, where she stopped to see a woman hugging a child. Perhaps you could be very close to me. My only dream is that you could love me in the way of love that I imagined. Always, with you. I will search for her. La 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 la, la 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 la. Now Issei was in front of a brunette with 2 cat ears. Both were being surrounded by several guys. The world turns and turns, and time changes again. Before the end comes, I want to have your love and be happy with you. Issei was being hugged by 3 girls while they had a smile, while his mother just smiled. Perhaps you could be very close to me. My only dream is that you could love me in the way of love that I imagined. Always, with you. I will search for her. Gabriel was walking through the city of Kuoh. While she had her head down, where is she? She bumps into someone. Where is she? She looks at the boy's face. Where is she? She is surprised to see a face similar to her son's. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Instead of tears, a soft song. And instead of this pain, I need your warmth. Now you could see Issei, who was sitting while looking at the sea where he is. He turns around and sees his mother and 3 beautiful girls where he is. He stands up and looks once more at the sea and then unfolds 4 pairs of wings, 2 of angel and 2 of demon. Chapter 5. The weeks passed normally at the Kuoh Academy, where Issei had not spoken or made any friends. Issei could be seen sitting on a school bench while he had his eyes closed, looking up at the blue sky. I still don't quite understand why humans came to these kinds of places here to study. I always thought about that. For what? If most of you see it on the streets, others complain about their lives constantly, and even work, what they call it. It is only a means of earning money to be able to live well in society. Although the majority lives stably, others have to make twice the effort to at least be able to eat. This is the harsh reality. The most powerful will always be above the weak. For Issei, this was more than just stupid. It was very big to see how humans considered themselves better than others. Because, for having money, for having a better house than the others, for having what they want and reflecting it in the faces of the less fortunate. Human life is honestly disgusting. He can't understand why there is so much inequality. If they are equal, they are human. There is racism towards others of different skin color. They treat others like mere slaves and pay them with a pittance. But still, humans keep going. Above all, humans who are weaker are humble in their own way, just like human children. They are happy with what they have. They don't care if they have torn clothes. They wear them anyway because they value what they have. Issei always looked at them like that, the human species as the one that always improves with time. Women today can work. Men of color have more respect than before. They are simply humans who, no matter how bad their abilities, will always far surpass supernatural beings, because without their powers they are nothing. And unlike humans, they are able to adapt to any difficulty that comes their way. Sometimes I wish I were a human, the boy thought as he looked at the sky. Ringing. The bell had rung as Issei stood up again and started walking towards his classroom, while behind him was a white-haired woman looking at Issei. She had silver hair and light blue eyes and was wearing a formal uniform while looking straight at the boy. She, due to some strange sensation, felt somewhat strange about the boy's presence since due to his aura that he gives off. Sighing, "It must be my imagination," the silver-haired girl thought as she started to go to her classroom to teach. In the sky you could see Gabriel totally nervous since today would be the faction meeting. Clearly she still couldn't overcome that psychological trauma she had about the demons. Trauma that led her to hate her son from the day he was born. Just because he was the son of the original Lucifer, she had put all the blame on the child who was born. She didn't even give him a name. Now, although she regrets it, she knows there's no going back. Sighing, "Well, it's about time I went," said Gabriel. Then she spreads her angel wings and flies away. While she was flying through the sky, she saw several angels walking through the streets of heaven, while fleeting memories passed through her mind, remembering seeing her son who was always walking alone through the streets. Whenever she saw him walking alone across the sky, she would rarely see him pass by. He was always alone. She quickly got those images out of her head, and then started to walk down to where two people were. This was Michael and Sandalphon. Both were at the gates of heaven watching as Gabriel had landed and then put away his wings. "Ready, sister?" Michael asked Gabriel, who only nods, and then they were both covered in a golden glow and disappeared from the place. With Issei, he was sitting in an armchair in his hunting suit next to his mother, who was preparing dinner. "Issei-chan, the senna will be ready soon. You can set the table," Angela said from the kitchen. Issei stood up and started walking towards the cutlery, where he started putting the plates and cutlery. While Issei was putting the dishes, several memories of him and his mother arrived. Humans may be selfish beings, but they have that feeling, which defines how each person is. In the memories you could see how Angela, Issei's mother, was teaching Issei to read some books. Yes, sometimes humans can be good and sometimes bad, but the efforts they make to make others happy is what truly counts. Angela was now giving Issei a bath while he just looked at her with curiosity, while Angela asked him how school went. Sometimes we don't even know what we have until we lose it completely, and then we realize that what we lost is something we can never get back. No matter how hard you try, that can't be recovered. Now we can see how Issei was behind a wall listening to how Angela was crying for not being able to buy clothes for Issei. Many things can happen, no matter how much it hurts. You always have to get up again and move forward. Issei approaches Angela slowly and then hugs her, surprising the woman, where Issei only hugs her tighter. Where he begins to cry louder. Yes, sometimes life may not be fair, but having that love from a truly special person is the only thing that matters in life. That person who can be strict but sometimes loving and will always be there for you, that is love. Issei was now sitting in the square next to Angela while he watched as several children were playing, and then Angela told Issei if he wanted to go play, where Angela began to mark Issei on a swing where he was smiling. That love of a mother or father will always be special, and no one will be able to compare it with anyone else. Now we see how Angela is sitting on a bench while Issei was next to her. She was looking at the beautiful sky while Issei just looked at her. Humans, are beings that are considered the greatest plague of the supernatural world. But there is something that they will already be able to understand about them. Now we can see how several memories of Issei with Angela. Some she is scolding him, another she is teaching him, and finally she always hugs him. But there is something that they will love, and that is the love that a human can give, that love that will always differentiate them from the rest. Without realizing it, Issei was shedding a few tears. And now you could see Issei and Angela in a park, both sitting where Angela tells him that today is his birthday, making Issei look at him curiously. Where is he? He takes out a cake, leaving Issei impressed. Where is he? He puts on a smile and approaches, and Angela just laughs seeing Issei's face. That love that he had never been given was now becoming a reality. Hey Issei, what's up? Angela's voice called him wherever she was. He turned around and saw his mother looking at him with concern where she left the cooking pot. And he begins to touch the albino's face. She may not be his real mother, but she gave him the love that no one ever had. Are you okay, Issei? Why are you crying? Was the question Angela asked him. Why would someone like her care about someone like him? He's not her blood son, but she still does. He gave her all his unconditional love despite his job and the little money he received. He always tried to give her a good life. Issei just stares at her. While all the memories come to his mind, wherever he is, he does something that surprises Angela. He had hugged her. That took Angela by surprise. Where she is corresponds to the hug where both of them stay there for a few moments enjoying each other's embrace. Mom, I love you, Issei said as he hugged the woman tighter. Me too, son, me too, she smiled happily while enjoying her child's hug. Yes, humans are special in their own way. They are greedy, arrogant, but at the same time they are beings with a lot of love and kindness, especially their mothers to their children. Now we can see an Issei crying while Angela was laughing while she wipes the tears of little Issei. Issei only enjoyed the hug that the woman gave him. Wherever she was, he only made a promise to himself that he would protect her from all evil that threatens her. She would be his guardian angel until the end of time. Instead of tears, a soft song. You can see Issei standing on top of a building while a tear of blood came out of his left eye. And instead of this pain, I need your color. I don't think I could change my world so easily, but even so. Now Gabriel was seen sitting on a chair while holding a necklace in her hands and hugging him tightly. I will calmly break this darkness, and I know that I will always try to move forward. Perhaps you will be very close to me. Issei is seen running with a smile towards a beautiful blonde-haired woman who is standing with her arms open, but then the whole place turns dark. My only dream is that you can love me in the way of love that I imagine. Now you could see Issei next to Angela. Both of them were strongly hugged while Issei had a smile. I will always, always, always look for her. I don't want to say again that I'm going to give up. The best thing I can do is just count on what's in me. Now Issei was next to a beautiful woman with long brown hair and green eyes. Both were sitting under a beautiful tree watching the leaves fall. There are things that make me fall, and it seems that I will give in. But even so, I made my decision. If I want to fight for you. Now Issei was with a beautiful albino woman with light blue eyes, both walking through the park together. I could make it so that this time, nothing exists anymore that I can stop. Even so, love what I want to find. Beyond the pain, I need your warmth. Now Gabriel could be seen walking through the city as people passed by beside her where she stopped to see a woman hugging a child. Perhaps you could be very close to me. My only dream is that you could love me in the way of love that I imagined. Always, always, with you. I will search for her. La 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 la, la 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 la. Now Issei was in front of a brunette with two cat ears. Both were being surrounded by several guys. The world turns and turns, and time changes again. Before the end comes, I want to have your love and be happy with you. Issei was being hugged by three girls while they had a smile, while his mother just smiled. Perhaps you could be very close to me. My only dream is that you could love me in the way of love that I imagined. Always, always, with you. I will search for her. Gabriel was walking through the city of Kuoh. While she had her head down, where is she? She bumps into someone. Where is she? She looks at the boy's face. Where is she? She is surprised to see a face similar to her son's. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Instead of tears, a soft song, and instead of this pain, I need your warmth. Cap 6. Now after eating, Issei said goodbye to Angela, wherever he is, and went to his room. Already in his room, Issei sits at the window of his home, wherever he is, and begins to look at the stars. Issei simply contemplates the view and then opens the window and takes out 4 pairs of wings, 2 angel and 2 demon, where Issei begins to fly throughout the city. While he was flying, he saw how the whole place was in a deep silence, a silence that calmed the white-haired man who sighed and continued his advance through the city. While flying, he stops right in front of the Kuoh Academy, where the first thing he notices is a barrier throughout the academy. Issei begins to descend and then begins to walk towards the academy. Stop, who are you? What are you doing here? A male voice said behind the white-haired man who hadn't turned his head. Was the only thing that came out of Issei's mouth as he continued his journey towards school, but just then a hand grabbed his shoulder. I asked you, what are you doing here? The man spoke seriously. But just as Issei turned around, his eyes began to shine gold, and then he released his grip and entered the barrier. The man's body slowly began to age. His clothes also began to wear out more and more, and then his whole body ended up in sickness. The faction meeting had already begun on the part of Delos Angels, were Michael Sandalphon and finally Gabriel. While Delos Fallen was Azazel next to a beautiful woman with purple hair who looked at the blonde very reluctantly. Maybe there was Odin next to a beautiful woman with silver hair looking at everyone directly from Delos. Demons were Sir Chest Lucifer next to Seraphal Leviathan, and finally there was a man with purple skin. He had 4 pairs of arms and his look was seen of total seriousness. For Gabriel herself, She was totally nervous about seeing the demons. Although they were no longer the same as years ago, she still had that phobia, and she was even more nervous about the look that the woman with purple hair didn't take her eyes off. Gabriel just stayed away from everything. Even Azazel looked at her very reluctantly, but he seemed to be more serious due to the topic of the meeting. They had all managed to reach an agreement where the god Shiva would participate to help with the terrorist attack of the so-called Kuoh's Brigade, or now known as Qliphoth, led by the same Rise and Levon Lucifer, son of the original demon. The reason the factions were really worried is because Rise of him had a crazy goal, and that was to release the beast of the apocalypse, Triaxa, the famous chimera that was in the Bible, but some also consider it the dragon of the apocalypse, although no one knows who he is exactly. Although there were several beginnings, not even Ophis herself knew of the existence of that beast. Besides recounting the untold disappearances of several magicians from all over the world, they had something in common. They were all involved with the investigations and theories of the beast. It was a real problem to solve, considering the fact that they have the same evil dragons and several traitors in their respective factions. Gabriel didn't want another piece to be created again. He wanted to continue like this. She wanted the world to be a peaceful place, just like her father dreamed of, and even her own son. She had stopped being that fierce warlord that was feared by everyone and became a very peaceful and kind person, and at the same time one of the kindest people. While she was never able to get her son back, she did this in his honor of creating the world that her father and son would have wanted. "Well, I think that's all right? He said. The red-haired Mao would be the correct answer. Everyone in the room nodded as they looked at the god Shiva. "Yes, on behalf of my faction, I will help with this problem. We cannot let these terrorists go free knowing what they are capable of doing. I speak seriously." They all nodded as they stood up to leave, but just at that moment another magic circle appears in the middle of the room, and from there a group of 5 people led by a silver-haired boy come out. Everyone in the room was looking at the group, where there was a woman with long black hair and ears sticking out of her head, and she had a large voluptuous body and was wearing a kimono. All the leaders looked curiously at the newcomers. "What are you doing here, Vala?" said the black-haired man with blonde streaks. "There's someone out in the yard," Vala replied, while everyone else looked towards the outside of the room where they were, and there they saw in the middle a figure who was wearing a figure who was in the yard looking in the same direction as them. All the leaders were very surprised at not being able to feel her aura, but there were 2 people who couldn't stay still, and they were a girl with white hair, just like the black-haired girl, who had cat ears sticking out of their heads. Both women were trembling slightly, as was the silver horse boy along with the other brown-haired boy who had his hands on his left arm, feeling a great burning sensation. "I didn't even feel it," Shiva spoke with shock while the leaders nodded, leaving the younger group surprised. "You certainly have to be someone very strong to come here," the black-haired girl with pigtails spoke seriously. All the leaders nodded and then looked at the group of young people behind them, where they all went directly out of the courtyard to face the mysterious figure. All the leaders along with the younger demons had arrived at the place where the hooded boy was, who wasn't even bothering to look at him. "Who are you?" said the redhead. "What do you want?" said the man with black hair with locks. "What are your intentions?" said the blonde in a serious manner. But the man in the hood had not responded. He simply looked up at the sky. "What are your intentions?" Azazel insisted. And for the first time, the young man turned his face slightly and looked sideways at the leaders and the young demons. "It is said that at some point, everyone is master of their destiny. Now I tell you, your destiny is in my hands," said the hooded man. "What are you saying?" Zergs asked. "Who are you?" Michael asked. Who is only the form that follows the function of the one, and what I am is a hooded young man," said the young man. "Yes, we already see that," said Azazel sarcastically. "Naturally, I don't question your powers of observation. I'm simply pointing out how paradoxical it is to ask a hooded man who he is," said the young man. "What do you want?" Zergs asked. "I had a dream. I dream of an ideal and beautiful world, far from this stormy reality, full of joy, peace and tranquility, where there is only justice, equality and mutual understanding, a place where everyone is happy," said the young man. "That's good. This meeting is the beginning of that. The factions will finally leave the past behind. We also want a better world," said Michael. "You won't be able to do it," said the young man. "What do you mean?" Shiva asked, confused. "No, how could I achieve peace? They are all murderers," said the young man. Everyone looked at the young man in surprise, who had remained motionless all this time. His words worried everyone, they didn't know why, but they had a bad feeling. Everything he had said since he arrived was strange. For hundreds of years, I saw the end of eras. The fights between races, the hatred and evil in their hearts. With each new era, I hope that this will be purified, said the young man. The hooded man turned around and faced the faction leaders who, along with the young demons, took a step back out of instinct. How many times has it been? Everyone repeats the same mistakes over and over again. The young man continued, but even so, we can continue living. Gabriel intervened for the first time. They are not living in the true sense. The existence of what we could call dear people has already died out. The young man replied. What do you want to do? Gabriel asked uneasily. It's something I decided after thinking about it for hundreds of years. The young man replied. A dark aura enveloped the hooded man, taking the form of a blizzard. Everyone shuddered when they sensed that energy. The young man emanated a cold, dark essence. It was like standing face to face with death. If the world continues to reject me, I will reject the world, said the young man. Speak clearly, it's annoying, said Azazel. You have my word. This wasn't my first choice, but in the real world you have to make difficult decisions, said the young man. What do you want? Asked Zergs. I have a mission, the young man replied. What mission? Seraphol asked. Peace in our times, said the young man. Suddenly, the dark aura surrounding the young man transformed into a tornado and expanded rapidly in all directions. Take cover, Zergs shouted. Immediately they all spread their wings and flew backwards at maximum speed, trying to avoid the dark blizzard. In a stroke of luck, they were saved by a few centimeters from that strange energy that gave them chills. But what? Zergs said, astonished. Impossible, said Azazel, surprised. Father, said Michael, closing his eyes. And no, Gabriel said in shock. The state of all the leaders was in complete shock due to the power that Issei released. When they noticed, the whole place was completely dead. Several flowers ended up wilting. Everything that was surrounding the young man was completely dead. They didn't know who the young man was. His words and power were confusing, but the leaders were sure of one thing. He was a threat. Not only had he attacked them without any hesitation, but he also emanated a disturbing aura. So they got ready to act. Quickly everyone got ready to attack. The redhead launched a great torrent of energy of destruction. Both blondes threw a great quantity of light spears, but the young man did not flinch and stood in his place to receive the attack full on. When the explosion occurred, a large cloud of dust rose up and covered the place. That was interesting was suddenly heard. When the smoke screen dissipated, everyone looked surprised as the hooded man did not have a single scratch and remained calm. I'm sorry. I know your intentions are good, but you didn't think it through. You say you want peace, but you don't see the nature of people. How can there be peace with people like that? Murderers, selfish, greedy, liars, the young man said. People can change. There is still hope. Love is the solution to peace, said Gabriel. Love means sacrifice, so it becomes hatred, and finally we know pain, said the young man. Not everything is like that. No matter how many mistakes people make, if we try, we can make this a better world. The day will come when people understand each other, said Michael. It's true, not everything in this world is bad. There are still things that are worth it, reasons that tell you there will be a better tomorrow, said Gabriel. You have to be realistic. This world is full of things that don't work the way you want. The more you live, the more you realize that this life is full of pain, suffering, and emptiness. The world is rotten, deaths daily, crimes constantly. Once you look around, you wonder if you would do the world a favor by getting rid of all the people, said the young man. So I decided to give the world a gift, said the young man. A gift? Asked Gabriel. The harmony and regeneration of the world, the young man answered. What are you planning? Michael asked. An annihilation. I won't leave anyone alive, the young man replied. Why, you Zergs said in shock. After that, the hooded man disappeared from the place, leaving all the leaders completely in shock. In another part of the city, just in the distance, was the hooded man who began to slowly take off his hood, revealing a boy with white hair who had his eyes closed, and then slowly opened them. I looked at the place for a while and then, clap clap, the sound of footsteps began to approach that boy, where he turned around to see how a boy with the same hair color as the other young man had appeared. Both look at each other while the albino begins to slowly open his eyes to reveal completely gray, lifeless eyes. His skin became much paler, and then he unfolded dark angel wings along with demon wings. But on his black wings you could even see the same stars. while the other white-haired boy took out some demon wings along with the huge white wings while looking directly at the other. After that, the other white-haired boy had appeared right behind the other, where both were turning their backs and their wings are spread out. Neither of the Delos two said a single word, they just remained silent. "Long time no see, Luzbel," said the young man with blue eyes. "Same here," Issei said. Luz. Chapter 7. Silence. It was the only thing that reigned with all the faction leaders still had not come out of the shock of what they had just seen, all of them. Nobody said anything or dared to speak. Even the demons were trembling with fear. Their bodies wouldn't stop shaking. Azazel was the one who seemed like he couldn't believe what was in his eyes. And Gabriel was the one who was the worst of all. That energy. It wasn't bad, no. That same energy was the same as his father's, although it was also somewhat familiar, melancholic. Shiva. What's going on? I've never felt this before. Everyone had their eyes on the god of destruction, who was looking at his hands and was shaking. And he wasn't the only one. Everyone in the room was in the same mood. No doubt whatever or whoever that guy was knew that he wasn't going to attract good things. Sir Chest. We have to report this to Odin. Everyone looked at them while Sir Chest only looks again at that place where the hooded subject was before, where only everything was dead around him. In another part of the city, Issei and Luzbel were looking at each other's faces. Either of them moved. Issei stayed away and Luz only had a monotonous face. Giving a long sigh, Luz spoke first. Luz. You've definitely changed, Issei. Issei. Everyone changes, light. Tell me, what are you doing here? Issei's question made Luz remain silent for a while. He closed his eyes for a few moments, and then spoke again. Luz. Nothing of much importance, Issei. This is not something that concerns you, or is it? Issei just remained silent. A few minutes his eyes had begun to shine and his fist had been surrounded by a black aura. Light, seeing this, simply disappears from the place, leaving only Issei standing there. Issei tis, looking up at the sky for a while. He would then spread his enormous angel and demon wings and disappear from there. The next day, at Issei's house, he was getting up from his bed, while giving a huge snort, to get up from his room and start walking down the stairs, where he saw his mother Angela. Angela. Oh, I see you're awake, son. Tell me, what do you want for breakfast? She had asked while looking at the white-haired man, who looked at her for a few seconds and then spoke. Issei. Some scrambled eggs if it's not too much trouble. She nods, as she goes to the kitchen and Issei washes his face. While he was washing his face, he only looks at the reflection where half of his face could be seen. But this time his skin was pale. His hair was a shade of gray and his eyes were yellow. Issei closes his eyes again to see himself there. Issei. Sigh, that's not me anymore. Issei just started to leave the bathroom, where he started walking back towards the dining room, where he heard his mother's laughter. He didn't take it very seriously. Where he then just poured himself a cup of coffee and took his scrambled eggs and went to the living room. Angela. Oh, Issei, why don't you come and say hi to your aunt? She had said, while Issei just looks at her for a few minutes and takes a cup of his coffee and nods, and then looks at his side where he saw her. She is a very beautiful woman with long brown hair, very large breasts, and an excellent body. She usually wears a white tunic with a green sweater underneath, a skirt, and long stockings. Oh, nice to meet you. You must be my cousin's son. I'm Hasegawa Chisato, nice to meet you. She had introduced herself with a friendly smile as she stood up and hugged Issei, patting him on her enormous breasts. Issei. Issei Kasuki, just call me Issei. Hasegawa-san. She said her mother saw this happily and then remembered something. Angela. Hey Issei, before I forget, Chisato will be the new nurse at the Kuoh Academy. Why don't you accompany her and show her around? Issei. Is that mandatory? Angela. Yes. Issei. Sigh, what does it matter? Issei said resignedly, while Chisato just laughed amusedly, and then they all had breakfast quietly. Elsewhere, in a desolate field, you could see Luzbel standing looking at the deep sea of that place, while behind her, there were several bodies lying all dead. You could even see worms eating the rotten meat there. Luz. Sigh, how much time has passed since that day? He began to walk through that dark forest where, as he walked through that place, several animals of the Sona were just looking at him. Light alone sits on top of a rock, where some birds had climbed on his finger. I love this melody, smiling face with heart eyes. Luz. Life is just garbage, said Luz. Sometimes I wonder why people kill each other, because there is war between them. Life will never be all roses. No, there will never be happy moments where everything you do is worth something. there always have to be bad moments. But sometimes you think and it's like, why do humans kill each other? Why is there so much poverty in the world? Why does all this have to happen? Why are there rapists? Why are rich and poor separated? Why are people getting weapons to kill others? It doesn't matter if they are innocent or not. There will always be deaths. The politicians are all corrupt, good and humble people die at the hands of others, food is scarce, and people become more and more desperate. Lose. Is this the world my grandfather wanted? You always wonder why. There are so many innocent dead, and God does nothing. Even many say that God has a plan. A plan is serious. What plan is for everyone to kill each other, for people to suffer? Because even the purest angel can have evil in his heart. Everyone has a sealed destiny. At that the bird that was in Luz's hand dies and falls to the ground while Luz stands up. Luz. There is no longer a home for me in this world. Looking at the beautiful light blue sky, it spreads its wings and disappears from that place. Without a girl noticing, she was behind the light and looked at everything that had happened. She begins to walk towards the place where there was light, and there she sees the dead bird. While next to it there was a black feather. She takes it, and then the feather begins to shine a little. Where it turns white again. Brilliant! She just puts the feather on top of the little bird where a glow surrounds her body where she is and gets up again, and then leaves from there, leaving only the girl who still looks at the beautiful feather in her hands. She is very beautiful. She just looked at the blue sky one more time, and then just disappeared from that place without leaving any trace. With Issei, he was walking with Chisato to the Kuoh Academy in a calm manner, but then he saw a white feather that was falling right in front of him. He just grabbed it and stared at it. Chisato. Issei-kun, what's going on? At that she notices the pen she has in her hands and then speaks again. Chisato. The fence is beautiful. Where did you find it? Issei, sky callous. Chisato just nods, then Issei looks at the pen a little longer, and then puts it in his pocket. Issei. Hope I'll see you soon, light, and when that stops I'll stop you. Without the white-haired man realizing it, the same girl who was in the forest was behind him and a slight smile appeared on her face. I'm glad to know that you're finally happy with someone. I hope you fulfill your dream and never stop flying free. She disappeared again from that place, while Issei turned around with something of a function. Issei. Maybe it was no or yes. Issei just stared at that place a little longer, and then just turned around and went to the Kuoh Academy. The color that is no longer there is a memory that is gone, and that returns when we relive each moment the same. Our dreams are no longer there. Issei can be seen standing in a huge field of flowers while in front of him was light. It's not the same as yesterday, and love won't come back. I don't know where I'm going. The distance didn't help to continue the magic that existed between you and me. Vanished the source of love, and that's how it woke up, and so it came back. You can see him standing in front of several dead animal bodies while a tear of blood runs from one of his eyes. And here you are, and you will not leave. It is impossible not to forget you, because I am by your side, and you will not be able to leave. The song that goes, that you listen to the most. Now you can see Issei, who was falling into a huge black void, while his wings seemed to be coming out of his back. While a few meters away from him, Light was all wounded and a shadow behind him with red eyes was taking his wings. The song that goes, that you listen to the most, to say that our life is like this. You will never forget me. The chain of flowers united us. Now you can see Issei, who was in front of a white-haired boy, who looked at Issei with a happy smile. Issei just smiles, then returns to his own home where behind him were a group of girls looking at him. Then 2 feathers fall to the ground, one black and the other white. Cap 8. We can see Issei sitting in his classroom waiting for teacher REBELDE to arrive, who had been delayed because something had happened, which Issei cared little about even though he was constantly being watched by several people. Among them was a blue-haired woman, another was a brunette, and the last one was Asia Argento herself. During the entire class he hadn't taken an eye off Issei, who was very calm about walking around being constantly watched. Issei, how much longer will they continue to monitor? Issei thought to himself. In fact, he had no problem getting rid of them. It would be very easy to eliminate them, but he had to be patient and take them to a place far away from the Demanus. At that moment the living room door opens and REBELDE enters. REBELDE, sorry for the delay. Some problems arose but it is now resolved. Issei sighed internally and then just continued with the classes. It was time for recess, and Issei was sitting under the tree watching everything calmly. Issei-kun? Issei-ump? I looked up and saw REBELDE standing there. Sensei, what's going on? Ross, nothing in particular, may I ask, while Issei looks for a few moments and then moves to one side. Thanks. She sits next to Issei where both did not say any words or anything. Issei remained calm despite everything, and Ross-wise, although strange as it may seem, felt so calm and relaxed too, as if all her problems were gone. Closing his eyes, he began to enjoy this a little. Issei-sensei, can I ask a question? Asked the albino without looking at the silver-haired girl. Ross-wise comes out of her calm and looks at Issei. Ross, sure. Issei, tell me something. What would you do if someone you know wanted to kill someone? What would you do to kill them so the problem doesn't arise, or would you try to talk it over? Issei asked without looking at her. Ross-wise is surprised by that question. Ross, that's a difficult question, Issei-kun, but why that question? She asked, looking at Issei. Issei, I once knew a man who dreamed of saving the world. Another man chose the survival of his species. What I desired was the happiness of a girl, Issei replied calmly. Ross-wise looks at Issei directly in his face, her hair moving in the constant blowing of the wind. Her eyes were closed, and the aura of calm was felt throughout the place. Ross, that's a bit of a difficult answer to give you, right, she said calmly, but you know something. Violence doesn't solve anything. People understand each other through dialogue. Ross-wise said calmly. Issei opened his eyes a little and then just closed them again. Issei, I see, Issei replied. In an amusement park, you could see several children playing and having fun. Everything was happiness and fun. While on a bench was Luz. Looking at all this, his eyes showed no hint of light, only a deep pain. Luz, the sound of happy children hurts my ears. Luz spoke in a dry and emotionless tone as she watched the children play, while in the distance, several adults could be seen watching the children. Then her gaze passed over a beautiful woman who was carrying a baby face. Sir? A child's voice called Luz's attention, who turned her face and saw a little girl in me. Luz, what's wrong, girl? She asked. Can you pass me that? He mentioned while showing him a toy with his finger. Luz just looks at the toy, then takes it, and extends her hand to the girl, who just smiled and takes it. Thank you, he said happily, and then looked at the face of Light. Sir. Luz, what's happening now? Are you sad about something? The girl asked as she looked at the face of Light. Luz, why do you ask that? I saw in your eyes that you are sad. Why? She asked innocently as she approached and sat next to him. Luz only raised an eyebrow out of curiosity at the infant's action, but she didn't take it seriously. Luz, why do you think I'm sad, girl? Does your eyes show that you are sad? Why? I asked. Luz, can I ask you a question? Do you have a mother? He asked. Yes, I have a mother, sir, and I love her very much. And do you have a mother? The girl answered and asked. Luz sighed. I honestly don't know, girl. Luz replied. Is your mom in heaven? Asked the girl. Luz, you could say that's how it is, girl, she answered while looking at the sky. My mom says that my dad is in heaven and that he watches over me from there, and that he is also always playing with the angels, she said with a smile while also looking at the sky. Sir, did you know your mother? She asked, looking at Light. Luz, yes, I saw her many times, but we never talked, she replied. Oh, and what was she like? Was she good? Asked the girl. Luz, she was a very beautiful woman, and always had a radiant smile on her face when she was with others, said Luz, but when she was with me she never saw me the same as the others. I always wondered why she never saw me the same as the others and why she never gave me a happy smile, he said while looking at his hands, and that the girl takes his hands where Luz looks at her. My mom, she tells me when a person is sad, she always takes my hands and buys me an ice cream, she said. Luz, ice cream? What is that? Asked Luz. Come on, let's go, sir. She began to drag Luz through the plaza to where they both bought ice cream, where Luz just looked strangely as the girl ate it. On the girl's part, she showed her how to eat ice cream, where Luz did the same thing as her. As the hours passed, the girl finally finished eating all the ice cream. She dragged Luz everywhere where they played all day, and they ran around the park from one side to the other. Although these emotions that Luz was suffering were something new, she was having fun for the first time in her existence. After a while, the girl's mother had appeared, where she looked at him with a bad face and took him by the arm and moved him away, but in that the girl had given him her toy. Luz, thank you, came out of her lips as she looked at the toy. The girl smiled and then went with her mother from there. The sound of sirens is heard in the place, while several people saw two people on the ground, all in blood. Light walked towards where the two bodies were, and then stopped right in front of the bodies. Crouching down, He then removed what was covering the face of the body that looked like a child, and completely removed what was covering her face. Right there he saw the face of the girl, dead on the ground with her eyes closed. Touching the girl's face, Rebelde just closes her eyes as a small tear of blood came out of her right eye. She stands up. Where? Police, sir, what are you doing here? Asked an officer as he approached. There was light, but when he was about to touch his shoulder, it had disappeared. Somewhere you could see Luz walking through that park where he met that girl, stopping his steps right in the middle of the park and still with the girl's toy in his hand. Luz, will all the people I know end up dying, huh? He mentioned while kneeling in the middle, and with his hands he began to finish a small hole, and then he looked at the doll again, and then placed it in the hole and covered it. Luz, I'm sorry, but if you hadn't met me, you might still be alive, she said as she stood up and turned around. I hope you're in Eden with your whole family at last. He began to walk away from that place. The wind began to blow all over the place. Rebelde just clenched her fists, and then disappeared from there again, while in the place where the toy was she began to rub a small apple tree. In the sky everything was chaos. After learning of the attack of that unknown person, where more than one felt that power, very familiar, that made everyone tremble. Gabriel was in her room. She still couldn't believe what she had seen. No, she didn't want to believe. She swore she had seen that same look before, those dull blue eyes looking directly at her. Gabriel couldn't get that image out of her head. She thought it was all a bad dream, but unfortunately it was the pure truth. But it's still strange that that aura, that presence was very identical to him. Could it be him? That question crossed his mind and he repeated it over and over again that time. But the question was, how is he alive? Closing his eyes hoping it was just a dream, Gabriel began to fall asleep hoping that it was just a dream. The color that is no longer there is a memory that is gone, and that returns when we relive each moment the same. Our dreams are no longer there. Issei can be seen standing in a huge field of flowers while in front of him was light. It's not the same as yesterday, and love won't come back. I don't know where I'm going. The distance didn't help to continue the magic that existed between you and me. Vanished the source of love, and that's how it woke up, and so it came back. You can see him standing in front of several dead animal bodies while a tear of blood runs from one of his eyes. And here you are, and you will not leave. It is impossible not to forget you, because I am by your side, and you will not be able to leave. The song that goes, that you listen to more. Now you can see Issei, who was falling into a huge black void, while his wings seemed to be coming out of his back. While a few meters away from him, Light was all wounded and a shadow behind him with red eyes was taking his wings. The song that goes, that you listen to more, to say that our life is like this. You will never forget me. The chain of flowers united us. Now you can see Issei, who was in front of a white-haired boy, who looked at Issei with a happy smile. Issei just smiles, then returns to his own home where behind him were a group of girls looking at him. Then 2 feathers fall to the ground, one black and the other white. Chapter 9. Everything the world desires. It was very clear that the world always looked for a way to have peace, but history has other plans. The story is violent. Although the desire for peace, the world breaks out in war. There are certain causes that the world goes downhill, issues of diplomacy, wars or inequality among other things, just as the demonstrations were another nail in the daily life of the world. But like the rest of the world, there is always a problem. The causes were simple: money, the question of powers, and so on. This causes the conflict between different political parties, where force intervenes. Human life is, in simple terms, the fittest survives and the least fit simply has to be eating the leftovers of others and find a way to get a job to help, be it his family, girlfriend, or children. Of course, even if you want peace, there will be war just around the corner. The same supernatural beings knew it. The Great Alliance to make the peace treaty was on the same boat. They formed a great alliance between rivals, such as the demons, beings made of evil, fallen beings who fell from the sky but retained the grace of God, and then the purest beings, the angels of heaven. Each and every one of them forms this alliance with the purpose of leaving their old disputes aside, and thinking about living in peace among themselves. The objective was clear, but once again history or destiny had other plans and another war was lurking. A terrorist group led by a dragon god was preparing to start the war. Who were also involved in these were different demons as fallen angels out of disgust at being allies of the demons and angels, where they themselves considered them inferior beings. It is stupid to know that once again the cause was the same as that of humans. Other gods from different pantheons decided to make an alliance with the factions, and forget all that in order to achieve the peace they so long for. Norse mythology and the yokais formed the Great Alliance to be able to live in peace and harmony. But that is an impossible dream to achieve, since although they were allies, there was clearly discontent among the majority, in the case of demons and fallen angels. Because their arrogance was much more than the fact of living with them. They were like humans, only with the simple fact that they have magic and powers and humans have nothing. Clearly, those same beings believe themselves to be more powerful than humans themselves. Their arrogance is a problem and a walking plague, since they feel they are untouchable, and they are prematurely children with airs of grandeur. Or that was Issei's thought. He can't say much because he is a hybrid angel-demon, so he just watches from afar. He had long since abandoned that wish he had promised his grandfather, that the world would no longer have to have war, inequality, racism, and above all hunger, and that everyone would be happy and be able to live in peace. He was aware that this dream was of a child who only wanted his mother to stop looking at him with such resentment and pure hatred, at him as well as at the rest of God's angels. Puff! It was nonsense. He lived for several years seeing that this dream was stupid, and above all it was a dream where the world was a cruel and ruthless world to the point that war was very constant. He saw firsthand the ravages of war, caused by the dead, the graves, and above all how dangerous it was in the middle of the dark night due to robberies, kidnappings and rapes, as well as the night work of women, who were looking for a livelihood of their own, and the times that he cried in that deep darkness under the moon that seemed to have a smile on his face seeing him with that desperation around the millions of graves. And with the passage of time more wars were started where technology improved considerably. But if something advances, weapons had to advance too. It was clear in that then the weapons were improved, swords changed to firearms, bows changed to explosive weapons, as did catapults, and others changed, submarine warships, airplanes, and above all nuclear bombs, bombs that were capable of destroying half the country completely. It was a fact that war would always be there, whether past, present, or future. The world was dangerous after all, and there was no going back from that doubt. Right now he can say that in this world full of chaos and despair he found a light, a small light, for his pathetic existence, and that was his mother, the only woman that he was truly willing to face the gods themselves to protect her. Even in the deepest abyss of darkness a small light of hope can appear. Classes had already ended, and certainly Issei, as usual, was walking towards the exit in a calm and relaxed manner, although of course the demons that guard the area were a little annoying for him, but he would prefer not to be involved with them for too long. Although it was already difficult because there were a total of 4 in her class. One was teacher Rosswise Sensei, and then there would be the church trio. If they knew all the atrocities the church committed after his grandfather died, he wouldn't know how they would react, although that also made him laugh a little. Issei-san. Hearing his name called, he stops his steps to turn slightly, and see that the woman in front of him was certainly beautiful. She was tall, beautiful, had long brown hair, wore glasses, and had beautiful emerald eyes, as well as great attributes. "Is something wrong, Heisawa-sensei?" I asked as I looked at the woman. "Yes, could you do me a favor and take these boxes to the infirmary?" he asked as a small smile formed on his face. He didn't flinch at the smile. It was clear that he didn't know much about emotions and what he had to do now. Smile. Letting out a small sigh, she decided to ignore the fact that she was smiling and responded very calmly. "Okay, sensei," Issei replied. The woman nods, and then she takes a box just like Issei, and then he accompanies her. Heading to the infirmary, both were talking about various trivial topics. It was clear that Issei felt a little strange to see this woman, but he decided to ignore that and focused on the fact of helping her. Upon arriving at the infirmary, they both entered together, and the woman placed the box on a table. "Well, thank you very much, Issei-san, you can leave it on the floor." She had pointed to one of the empty stretchers. "Okay," he replied without giving it much importance. While he left the box on the floor, lying on the infirmary bed, he cleaned himself a little of the dust that was on his clothes, and then he saw the teacher arranging some books, strange according to him. "That's it, sensei," he announced as he was about to leave. "One moment, Issei-san." She stopped him, while Issei looks at her for a few minutes. "Thank you very much, really. If you have a problem or something you can come see me," said Chisato. When she finished speaking, a strange sensation ran through Issei's body as if he already knew her from one side. But where? But he decided to get those thoughts out and set his sights on the brunette, and nod and then say goodbye to her. See you, Heisawa-sensei. And after he left the infirmary he couldn't help but think it was strange that Heisawa knew so much about him. It was strange, but he decided not to think about it, and returned to the world towards his home. While he was leaving the institute, in the window the brunette was certainly looking from afar, as Issei left her sight, letting out a small sigh, and a small smile formed on her face, as if she herself found what she was looking for. A long time ago, she walked towards one of the boxes and there she began to look for something, but what? From the box I take a photograph where there were two children together. One was a girl and the other a boy who was holding a book, and it was noticeable that he was reading. She just hugged the photo and said a few simple words. It's good to see you back, Issei. Even if you don't remember me anymore. Chisato said in a small whisper. Somewhere in Japan, the cries for help from the people could be heard everywhere. As people screamed and asked for help, the small town was on fire. There were several dead bodies scattered around the place. Children, adults, women, and especially an older man, Korean, terrified and scared. In the middle of all that destruction, there was a teenager with ash-white hair and light blue eyes, and it seemed that he was wearing armor that covered only his right arm. He was wearing metallic boots and had his right arm extended upwards. In front of him was a man with black hair and golden eyes. He was completely wounded and could barely breathe, and blood was coming out of his forehead. He looked furious. It was Susanoo, the storm god, who is kneeling. Tell me why you're doing this, the god asked as he stood up and picked up the katana that was lying on the ground and looked coldly at the boy in front of him. It's simple. I'm helping humanity evolve. His voice replied emotionless. Susanoo slowly opened his eyes at such an answer and looked into the eyes of the boy who was attacking the territory of the Japanese gods. Don't buck with me. How is humanity going to evolve if you're killing them? That doesn't make sense. Susanoo spat out those words. He was very upset with what he just heard from this guy. Without flinching at any time, the teenager responded dryly. I see that you do not understand, God of the Storm. Although it is understandable you are not a human to be able to evolve, humanity needs to be restarted, he said. How? Answer me this. How do you plan to make humanity evolve? If you're committing genocide? Susanoo asked, not understanding what his tank wanted, although of course this was a mere facade. He was already waiting for reinforcements to arrive. You say I only see the negative things in our world, but in reality, I only see what can be fixed. The teenager responded. Fix? Tell me you want to fix humans, make them evolve, instead of a genocide. Don't you feel sorry or something? Asked Susanoo seriously. The teenager sighed and then spoke. I just want to bring peace to the world, even if I have to get my hands dirty to bring peace to the world, he replied stoically. It seems that your idea of peace is twisted. Don't you know that the gods and other supernatural beings are doing their best to be at peace? Said Susanoo. Tell me something. Will you continue with this? Asked the god. I will never tire. I will never show mercy. I will never rest until they are all destroyed. This gives me no pleasure. It is the only solution. There must be peace, and order. The end of life on earth will ensure it, the teenager declared at the top of his lungs, while Susanoo only shook his head. Then I have no choice but to kill you, Susanoo muttered as a light white aura surrounded him. MMMH came out of the teenager's lips as his aura surfaced, and it was black in color. They both stared at each other. A mighty battle was about to begin. Captain, aren't you thinking of interfering? Not necessarily. This fight isn't mine. It's my brother's. You know perfectly well that we can't interfere with the lives of mortals, said a beautiful woman with long pink hair, 2 fox ears with several tails behind her. But Amaterasu, she's a global threat, the man said, worried, looking at the goddess in front of him. Don't worry about it. He shook his head and crossed his arms. Dark times are coming, brother. We have to be prepared for what's coming now, so stop worrying about our brother. Will you? He said with a raised eyebrow. Okay, sister, I'll do it. Sighing, the man looked behind him once more. I know you think I'm a monster for what I'm doing right now, but you know perfectly well that we have a ban on any supernatural being interfering with human life, and you know perfectly well what I mean. She narrowed her eyes and looked up at the sky. Several memories of herself flooded her mind as she watched several of Ivan's arrows rain down on her. What do you think will happen now? Why do you ask that, Roswai-san? In the occult club room were all the members along with several members of the hero faction and the hacker Yoku team. Each and every one had several different thoughts after the faction meeting. No one felt sure what to do at this moment. After that, many felt a little fear for that destructive power. We'd better not think about that now. Rias spoke up. The redhead is right. Worrying about what happened now won't be too distracting. Vala said. I'm all Naya. Where's the other team that Azazel Naya mentioned? The /dog team is currently searching for information and is on an undercover mission. Out of nowhere, a beautiful woman with long violet hair and red eyes entered the occult club room, also wearing a secretary's suit. It's been a while since I saw you guys. How have you been? Penemu, aren't you supposed to be in Europe? Oh sure, but Azazel took charge of the negotiations, she replied calmly. I came here as an assistant regarding the meeting. I know that Ophis is currently not in this dimension, and that she is in the dimensional gap, so I tend after what was said by the most beautiful fallen angel of Gregory. More than one relaxed their posture and tried to think about what happened at the faction meeting with the Indian faction. Shiva-sama and Hindra are calm as far as we know, but there are certain signs that the Shinto faction is on the move. I also reacted the same as you. It seems Amaterasu and the Yukais plus the Shinra and Himejima clan are about to meet this very night at the temple of the goddess of the sun, mentioned Penemu. And you yourselves will be in charge of going there to help in everything they need. This could have a future alliance against Clippeth. I get the point, I said. Leave this to us. With that said, the whole group prepared for the big meeting that would take place today. A meeting with only one main objective, and that was the threat of Clippeth. Is something wrong, Rosswise-san? Following the question from former nun Asia Argento, Odin's former bodyguard turned her head slightly to the side, fixing her gaze on the schoolyard. I was just thinking about certain things. You don't have to worry about it like that, he replied calmly. Everyone looked at the Valkyrie and then simply put her aside and stood up. Well, I think it would be better to be prepared for tonight. We don't want to have any problems. I agree with Rias. After that last thing said, everyone began to leave the occult club, while Rosswise, after leaving the club, separated from the rest in sight of Kuroka, who did not hesitate to follow the Valkyrie. After several minutes, Rosswise was on the roof of the school and leaning on the railing. She began to observe the whole place. Much to think about, Naya. Kuroka, what are you doing here? I just wanted to know what's up with you, Naya, he replied calmly as he stood next to her. You're more distracted than usual, Naya. Snorting, the Valkyrie looked at the Nikomata. It's a lot to think about. There's a lot going on. First, there's the Clippeth incident, and then there's that strange day at the meeting. Thus, after what Rosswise said, Kuroka also knew what he meant. Destruction and death was the only thing that this life brought, a life full of war. Although there was peace and the world changed, there was senseless death not only in the supernatural world but in the human world too. It was the same. But reaching genocide was too much. Even to reach that level, creating a total annihilation was anything but easy to do. But that show of power was enough to make more than one take the words of that guy seriously. Even the reaction of the angels said it all. A power that is capable of stealing life, Naya. Kuroka showed a melancholy expression. Rosswise also nodded. The world is totally crazy. Or maybe we're crazy too. Suddenly they both felt a great tremor throughout the place. They quickly looked up at the sky and saw how several clouds began to appear and lightning began to fall from the sky. Boom! What the devil? Kuroka, Rosswise, we need your help now. Suddenly a magic circle formed in the ears of both women. Laughs, what's happening? Suddenly the whole weather changed all of a sudden. There was an attack in the human world, very close to the city of Tokyo, Japan. He appeared and almost completely destroyed the city, and right now Susanoo no Mikoto-sama is in charge of him. After what Ria said, both women quickly looked at each other, and quickly began to run inside the Kuoh Academy building, while on the other side of the building, a young teenager looked at the sky without any expression, and then simply spread his angel and demon wings and quickly took flight. Clank! 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 Bibuba! In great destruction there was what was once the great city of Tokyo. In the middle of the chaos and destruction, two people were standing. One was an older man with long white hair and blue eyes, and the other was a handsome young man with white hair and yellow eyes that reflected no life at all. Susanoo no Mikoto, and that boy who had heard about the reports from her sister. I must say, I didn't think you'd last this long. the young man said, taking a step forward. The god of the storm and the sea tilted his head to one side. I guess I can say the same about you, replied the Det. It's a shame what you want to do is crazy. Where? Suddenly the whole place became heavier. The god, having the great change that happened in the surroundings, quickly became on guard and watching the young man. You say I'm crazy, but is it because my plan to exterminate all life is due to some maniacal reason? I think you're wrong about something. The young man took a step forward as a black aura surrounded him, and everything around him began to fall apart. Whether you're right or not, I'm crazy, I won't deny it, but there are reasons behind my plan. Ending life is impossible. Even if I kill every last cell in this entire world, life will go on. Humans are capable of many things. What do you mean by that? Actually, humans who live virtuous and decent lives suffer irrational tragedies, while evil people do whatever they want because they live insane, interesting, pleasure-drunk lives. Because these people don't receive divine punishment. At least they'll go to hell when they die. That's what mentally weak people have to think, or they wouldn't be able to live with themselves, right? They keep it deep in their minds. Humans are so pathetic. And in the blink of an eye, and to Susanoo no Mikoto's surprise, the young man was in front of her. She tried to react, but before she could even throw a punch with her arm, she was caught. Because I don't show you something interesting. His left arm was completely disintegrated. Feeling great pain for the loss of his arm, he quickly moved away from the young man while large amounts of blood came out. Even a god can bleed, the young man said. You damn you. Don't take it personally, you were the one who got involved. He didn't even have a chance to finish speaking as out of nowhere several attacks came from multiple directions, causing a huge explosion where that young man was. Susanoo-sama, what are you demons doing in this place? After the god's question, the Gremory group arrived, accompanied by Sona Citri and her nobility, as well as the arrival of several other young people. I'm sorry, but our leaders sent us here to help you. Haha. Letting out a dry laugh, the god looks at the young demons. I think it will be interesting. I feel humiliated that some young people are fighting over me. The deity responded by standing up and standing in front of all the young men, who quickly took up guard. The god's gaze fixed on the two bearers of the celestial dragons, and then he looked back ahead, still without stopping his bleeding. I didn't think more would come. The young man's voice made more than one person look straight ahead without saying a word. And after the smoke screen dissipated, the young man was seen standing without a scratch. Even if Alan more of you. His eyes flashed. You will die. Suddenly the entire black aura of his body spread out at great speed. Careful, get as far away as you can now. They quickly spread their wings and managed to get as far away from that place as possible. All that black energy that surrounded a large part of the place, and everything around it had begun to destroy itself as if it had died. REBELDE. Before even reacting, the Valkyrie saw that in front of her was none other than the young man, who extended his hand directly towards her face. Quickly dodge it, you have to dodge it. He was about to touch her face when he felt someone pull him from behind and then throw him backward. Clank! 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 Rolling on the ground, REBELDE looked in front of her, and it was none other than the storm god Susanoo no Mikoto, who had helped her, gritting her teeth. Stay there! Everyone's expression quickly changed after what the storm god said, who was fighting the young man head to head. Clank! 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 The metallic sound of the sword colliding with the young man's fist was the only thing that could be heard, while everyone watched as simply a black shadow and the other white one moved around all the surroundings. Clank! Clank! Pow! Receiving a powerful blow to his left eye which caused it to explode inside, blood began to drip from his eye as he walked away from the young man, who had several cuts on his body. But to the surprise of the others, they saw how his body began to regenerate. Why so much effort in protecting life? I am a god, my job is to protect the younger generation. Anyone or most would do the same, the god replied. We may not show it or even be far from humans, but there are big differences. We are immortal beings, but at the same time we can die. We love another deity. Even so, I do not agree with your plan. Humans and even supernatural beings may live, causing chaos in the world. A smile formed on the deity's lip. But that makes the world so interesting. Humans are like beautiful stars that shine so brightly. The gods' decision to let humans live on their own made them stronger. They simply evolve. But they create war, they kill each other. Even if it's like this, it's no different than how we act. They fall in love, and despite how short their life is, they won't stop laughing and crying even though they're so close to death. They smile until the very last moment. Suddenly a great aura surrounded the god, causing the whole place to begin to shake greatly. Opening his legs and leaning his body to one side, his katana opened on fire. It's now, I'll cut a big piece of your body. Smiling, I release a large wave of energy. The young man's eyes widened, and then he gave a small but imperceptible smile. What a wonderful fighting spirit, and that stance has no weak points. No words. No words, Rengoku. The ground cracked, and in a great burst of speed, Susanoo no Mikoto launched herself at full speed towards the young man who was watching this. As Susanoo approached, a large dragon formed. In the sight of all the young demons, it was amazing. Putting both hands forward, the young man stopped the dragon, while in front of him appeared none other than Susanoo. Here, aha jaja, Bubba. Chapter 11. And in the latest news about the terrorist attack in Kyoto City, a gigantic explosion was generated. This strange event caused more than 7,000 deaths per. We are still searching for several survivors. The government is searching for whoever could have caused this attack. Many say it could have been a terrorist attack. Turning off the TV, sitting on his sofa in the dining room, he would let out a sigh. Issei looked to the side of him at his mother, who seemed quite worried. By God, it must have happened. Or the words of the woman who looked at Issei, who simply shrugged his shoulders. I wouldn't know what to tell you, he said briefly. This is something supernatural after all. It seems a new holy war may begin. Another holy war? You're talking about the same war you told me about angels and demons, right? Yeah. After her short response, the woman simply looked at Issei with a worried face. He realized this, so he spoke. Don't worry about anything, he said calmly as he stood up and then looked at her. Whatever happens, I will protect you. I will not let anyone hurt you. His light blue eyes shone so intensely. Even if I have to kill a god, I will kill him, mother. She looked at him and then smiled slightly. I don't care about me, you know, she said lightly. I care about you, Issei. I am a human and I am at an advanced age, and you know it. She would approach and touch his cheek. I am going to die at any moment. And that is what worries me, Issei, that you are alone back. He looked at her slightly and smiled slightly. It doesn't matter that I'm alone, he said, and then closed his eyes. I will always remember you, mother. That will be my greatest treasure, and above all, where you are going is the best place, be sure of it. She smiled, haha. It seems that Rosway Sensei's classes are cancelled. Even one Sama's and even the student member and the occult club member, Azazel Sensei, were absent. After what the student said, Issei looked around and saw that there were no supernatural beings in the school. Seeing this, he looked and then began to walk towards the schoolyard, to sit in a tree and then look at the sky. I guess something big happened indeed. Looking up at the sky, even the weather is weird, but only this happens if. His eyes widened and he quickly stood up. I have to find out something fast. Quickly disappearing from the place, dropping some feathers on the ground, Chisato looked at the place to take the feathers. I see you realized what will happen now. Will be interesting to see, Issei. Underworld, Gremory Castle. In the Gremory Castle, all the leaders of the factions, whether biblical plus the other Norse mythology, Greek and now also Japanese mythology, were all gathered in the room. The reason? We agree that that boy's threat shouldn't be taken lightly, not after achieving what he's done. Were the words of Serchus, who was sitting with his arms crossed, looking at the other leaders. He killed a god, said a man with short black hair wearing a black kimono with golden details, and at one of his waists he had a katana. This is not something to be taken lightly. Not only did he attack the place and temple of the yokais, I must say that thanks to Yasaka and my brother they managed to hold on as long as possible. Not only that, Odin spoke on the matter. The attack by the Cow Brigade terrorist group has been in constant motion these past few months. Odin is right, Azazel said. I sent my best search team and they found one of their bases. What did you find, Azazel? Asked a man with long golden hair and a huge white beard, looking at the fallen man. From the reports I received, they were attacked and brutally murdered. At this information, everyone in the room fell completely silent. while Azazel showed a hologram of the events that had happened. You could see several corpses, all in composition, and some with panicky faces. That is very brutal, but above all, what kind of magic is that? Odin looked at the hologram. That same magic that my father had. The magic of being able to take lives like that and create was magic that only Elohim possessed. Inside that room there were several groups of people with their eyes wide open in surprise. If that was the case, then you're saying he could be an even bigger threat, Zeus said, looking at the fallen man. That's not the case anymore. Michael spoke up. We're not facing an entity that can even manipulate and create life like a major deity. Even so, the power it has is much greater. Shiva himself said that the power of that guy was strange, especially his aura. Tsukuyomi spoke, looking at the faction leaders. Do you know anything about it? Michael and Azazel looked at Terchus, who nodded. If we know anything, from the power and aura he was emanating, we could deduce that he may be a fallen angel. A fallen angel that you don't know who it can be. All the fallen angels that are in Gregory don't have or don't come close to that ability that he has. Azazel spoke. So you say you don't know him? Odin said, looking at the fallen one, who nodded, while the three deities looked at each other and nodded. Then it could be that this fallen angel is one of the few survivors of the holy war of the factions. I investigated, and it wasn't just me and the other leaders of Gregory. No one had at that time the potential that the subject has, so we made a mistake. Azazel looked slightly at Michael and then went to look in front where Gabriel was, who realized that looked strange not only at them but at everyone else. Is something wrong? Michael sighed and, Gabriel, this is hard to say, but at that time after that you felt it yourself, right? Even Azazel felt it. I don't understand, Michael. Gabriel, Azazel looked at the angel. What Michael means is, that guy we met firsthand not only had a sacred aura but was also mixed with cursed energy that the demons themselves produced. Doesn't that sound familiar? At what the fallen man said, everyone looked at the angel, who opened his eyes in surprise at this, then stepped back slightly. No, it can't be him. He must be dead. We haven't heard from him. Seeing Gabriel's face in panic and seeing how several tears were about to come out of his eyes, she falls to her knees. Gabriel-sama! Quickly those in the room would approach to try to help her. What are you trying to say, Azazel? That's why he reacted like that. Tsukuyomi got straight to the point. First, even all the youngsters had better pay attention. We might be facing a catastrophe-level threat in the end. The young demons, like reincarnated angels, looked at the leaders, then Michael sighed thoughtfully to look at the rest. The story I want to tell you is about the nameless angel, the one who was born with the blood of an angel and a demon. Michael would begin to write the story. Michael would tell everything that had happened in that great war of factions and the great secret that heaven kept. They spoke of what happened to Gabriel, his grape at the hands of the first demon king Lucifer, and in addition to the birth of Gabriel's first son, they not only told about the treatment he received from heaven but also spoke of how his father Elohim was the only one who raised him and was with him in fact. More than one simply looked at Gabriel, and then at Michael until that day came, when she left him on earth. After that, nothing was supposed to happen to him. A rather awkward silence fell as the two gods looked at the angel, and Azazel and Terchus and the other leaders looked at the other angels who had attended. I see. Zeus took the floor and sighed deeply. I won't really say anything, because I'm not a good father, nor a good husband, but that was definitely the stupidest thing you could do. How did you not fall into those thoughts? Tsukuyomi spoke, looking at Gabriel with hostile eyes. Father Kappas had done something with the system, was the only response Gabriel gave. MHP, there's not much to regret. What's done is done. Odin looked at the others. But we'll definitely have to kill him. He's a threat to us all. At what the Norse god Gabriel said, she wanted to say something, but in the end she simply remained silent in her place, lowering her gaze. With all this said, the best option now is, and before I could continue speaking, a small tremor was being generated in place and, boom, a gigantic explosion had fallen on the faction leaders. And in the sky was floating a subject who was wearing somewhat formal clothing and who also protruded some enormous horns. Loki. It was the only thing Odin said, looking at the sky while a protective barrier covered everyone else. The young demons quickly put themselves on guard, ready for a confrontation. While the god of deception looked at each of those present with a slight frown and looked at everyone and then turned his gaze to Odin. Odin, within your long years of life, this cursed alliance with these things. he said, looking at the demons and angels. It is surely blasphemy for us gods to unite with them. Loki, idiot son, I thought I told you not to interfere in this. We're not just doing this for the common good. Common good? A wry smile came to his lips. Odin, for you it is a common good. Tell me what makes you say those words. The god crossed his arms. We have the same goals, and each of us is trying to improve our world. Helping each other is the best way to do this during this time of war that is about to come. That for you is a common good, eh? It is clear that the alliance is for war, as the truth is I do not understand how several gods are under the three factions. Loki closed his eyes. For me a common good is to do what we please in our world. After all, we cease to exist for humans, we are myths, and there you are defending those filthy monkeys. With clear contempt in his words, the god looked at everyone in the room. I will never accept this stupid alliance with the other beings. You don't understand anything, Loki. Odin looked at the Norse god. This is for everything. We don't need your stupid nonsense anymore. The father's eye all shined golden. Get out of here now, Loki. MMHM. Loki snapped his fingers. From a moment now, from the magic circle began to appear two large beasts. Those are, for the first time I speak with surprise. Yes, the children of Loki, Fenrir the wolf whose bite is capable of killing gods, and then there is the great serpent of the world, although this is a copy of it, Jormungand. Odin said seriously, the Norse god. Loki for his part smiled. You thought I was going to come to this place without some reinforcements. Loki understood his arms and with a satisfied smile. This is the end of your stupid alliance, and the beginning of Ragnarok. Cap 12. It's been a while since I've seen the underworld, Issei said to himself as he stood on top of one of the mountains outside the demon territory. Although the place is still the same, his gaze focuses on the artificial sky that was there. At least they put in some small details. How ironic. Looking around, he began to search with his vision for a certain place, until he raised an eyebrow. It seems like there's a meeting there. In fact, it's strange, I feel divine energy but I don't recognize it. Looking at that place fixedly, her light blue eyes shone intensely. Well, I'll go take a look at the layers. Realizing what was happening. It seems like there's an attack there, huh? Releasing a heavy sigh. For now I'm just going to observe the layers, and if you need help I'll just give you a hand for the moment. I'll observe what happens. Saying that last thing, she began to walk towards the city of the underworld. Meanwhile, Loki continued watching as everyone in the room had prepared to fight. Even with the numerical difference before he could do anything, several magic circles surrounded him, and from one moment to the next Loki and his children had disappeared from that place. I think it was just the right time. Ajuka Belzebu appeared, looking at everyone in the room. I locked him up for a few hours and sent him out of the underworld city. Meanwhile, it would be best if all the young people in the room came out. With that last thing said, everyone started to leave that place, leaving only the leaders. I apologize for my son's tactics. I had a slight suspicion about it. Odin apologized. It doesn't matter, Odin Dano. It's not only you who has the same problem with the other deities. Tsukuyami spoke calmly, looking at the other leaders. You're right. Everyone in our factions has people who don't like this alliance despite the danger out there. Azazel spoke calmly. Now we have to settle the issue about the boy, and we have to resolve the issue of Loki. Yes, we can't interfere because it could cause a misunderstanding with the other factions. We'll have to send the younger ones to fight. Serchus looked at the other leaders. Serchus is right. Our best option will be to send a small response team to this. What better for the future generation that follows us? Azazel looked at everyone with a slight smile. How are they going to stop Loki? Tsukuyami asked. We can seal it. I will return to Asgard and give them a replica of Thor's hammer so they can seal my son. Odin looked at the others. But only one person will be able to wield it. I know who can be the pillar of our alliance. Yes, that would be the best option. Odin nodded. I'll send Ross. She's young and has incredible potential with magic. She's very good. She'll be your support and long-range attacker. Then I will send some members of your nobility to Rias and Sona Citria along with your queen. From heaven I will send Irina as our representative, and I will send an extra reinforcement. Michael said, looking at the others. Tsukuyami looked at the leaders and sighed. I will send one of my champions from heaven. The god looked at the leaders. As I said before, my brother's death will not be in vain. We the Shinto gods will join this alliance to help you. With that last thing said, all the other leaders smiled and accepted the deal that had been made. While the young demons were preparing for a fight, inside the city of the underworld in one of the alleys was sitting Issei, who had his eyes closed. When he opened them, it was shown how his eyes shone intensely. So we'll be the ones who go, huh? He seemed a little nervous. That's right, by orders of the leaders we will go. We will be the ones to stop Loki for a while until the reinforcements arrive. Rias would let out a slight sigh. Our first fight against a deity, huh? How my luck stinks, hee. She said with a sarcastic smile, while adjusting her glasses. I never thought we would have this kind of difficulty before. Our first fight against a deity, you have to think that maybe some of us won't come back, said the brown-haired girl, looking at everyone. Rias simply looked at her other servants, who also had the same thought. If I'm being realistic, you're right, Aika. Some of us might not come back alive. She decided to be honest. We've never faced a deity, yes, we're even at war with the Cow's Brigade, and we might even die later on. She took a breath but I think we'll get through this together and live, she said with a smile. We've had worse fights. We almost died against Kokabeel and even the attack on Kyoto. And we're still alive, it's destiny that wants to see us alive. With that, everyone else smiled and Bucho is right. Kiba would take the word and would approach Rias. I am and will be your sword until the day I die. That was my promise, as well as protecting everyone. Hi Bucho, I am your queen and you know that I will follow you until the end, Aquino said with an amused smile. It's okay, he said, crossing his arms. I promised you I'd be your strongest pawn and I feel like punching a god in the face. Zoning her knuckles, Kaneko looked at them all and said, There, break his legs. And with that everyone laughed freely, because in the end they put a little weight aside without the pressure of before. Everyone else in the room who would participate all nodded with the same thought. Will they survive? Everything was ready and the entire group was ready to go on the mission to stop Loki. The group was made up of Rias, Kiba, Zenobia, Aquino, Sona and Tsubaki and Saji from the demons. Irina would be the only one from the angels. Rosways would be part of Asgard, and finally the Security, who was Aika Kari, bearer of the Red Dragon of Wales and was also a member of the demon faction. Well, we're all ready to go. Rias looked at everyone who nodded. Starting to walk towards the portal, she looked at everyone around her and saw her brother, who gave her a slight nod, causing her to laugh slightly and go through the portal. We'd better move in the meantime. The brats won't be able to hold out for long. With that said, Azazel and the rest of the leaders quickly began to move, while on top of the Lucifer castle building was Issei, who was sitting quietly while watching the red sky of the underworld. What a pain! He sighed heavily as he stood up. But well, he'll have to go and interfere when the time comes, while so many others just go. Where are you thinking of going? Issei opened his eyes slightly in surprise to turn slightly and look at the one who had spoken to him. Turning slightly, he looked at a young man with red hair, who was looking at him with his arms crossed. I see that this time I was a little careless. A little? I think he's quite grateful that I've known you for years, the redhead said calmly. What are you doing in the demon territory, Issei? Sighing heavily. Nothing interesting, but I see you all have a slight problem, don't you? He looked at the young redhead. What do you know so far about Sasano's death? I'll tell you later, but I guess you already know. The redhead looked at him with his arms crossed, and then sighed slightly. If you're going to do something, don't let them detect you, Issei, or I won't be able to cover you any longer. With that said, the redhead began to walk away while Issei smiled slightly. Hi, see you later, Serchus. With that last thing said, he disappeared in a magic circle. It's good to see you back, my old friend. Serchus looked at the capital of the underworld. Although I won't be able to keep you a secret for long. The young demons and the remaining members of the Alliance were already gathered on the battlefield. Everyone was gathered. Well, since we're here, we'd better get ready. Rias looked at the rest of the group, who nodded as the sky began to crack until it shattered, revealing Loki along with his 2 children. Damajuka, he said, looking around until. MMHH, are you really in charge? Loki said disappointedly, looking at the group of young demons in front of him. Although the security may be the real problem. Loki-sama detangle. You are his bodyguard, huh? Loki looked at the Valkyrie. I heard something about you. You are a genius with several types of magic, huh? Although, well, it won't be enough. Looking at his children, he snapped his fingers and then 2 more wolves appeared. Those are Skull and Hattie. REBELDE looked surprised as the wolves growled. Be careful, their bites are the same as Fenrir's. With that said, the wolves quickly began to attack. Quickly attack! With that shout, everyone reacted in time, dodging the wolves' attacks. REBELDE, REINA and Zenobia take care of Skull, Kiba and Aquino go against Fenrir, Tsubaki and Sona go for Gato. Rias ordered while everyone nodded. Saji, Aika and I take care of Loki and Jormungandr. With that said, the group split up, leaving only Loki and Jormungandr, who was beginning to release a light green smoke from his mouth. Meanwhile, Kiba and Aquino were dodging several blows from Fenrir, who was moving through the mountains. Using his hair speed, Kiba would dodge a bite from the wolf. For her part, Aquino from the sky attacked with several holy rays directly impacting Fenrir, who let out a growl of annoyance, and would look up to the sky seeing Aquino. Fufufu, come doggy doggy. A slight growl was released by Fenrir as he showed his enormous fangs, and letting out a howl, the wolf would begin to quickly climb the mountains while Aquino launched several holy rays. However, Fenrir dodged the attacks of the demon, and arriving he launched himself, opening his mouths. For her part, Aquino quickly launched a ray hitting right in his snout, causing Fenrir to close his mouth. Taking advantage of it by Kiba, who gave a slight jump, sticking several cuts in the wolf's heels, causing him to fall. Gruer, letting out a growl, Fenrir looked at Kiba and then Aquino, who was in the sky. As she stood up slightly, Fenrir looked at Kiba with pure hatred while and letting out a howl, Fenrir quickly used his tail, taking Kiba by surprise, who couldn't do anything just seeing the tail whip. The force of that blow sent Kiba flying and crashing into one of the mountains. Kiba-kun! Aquino shouted, worried for her partner, while she opened her eyes in surprise, and then she couldn't help but quickly cast another lightning spell. But at the moment she wanted to cast a lightning bolt, she hit him with her claws, sending him crashing against the ground. Cough, cough. She looked up as she watched Fenrir slowly approach her. Getting on her knees, she wiped the blood from her mouth. Well, I thought for a moment it wouldn't be easy, she said as a slight smile appeared on her face, and several lightning bolts formed in her hands. Fufufu, come puppy, your older sister is going to take care of you, she said as she spread her wings. Well, it seems they have started, Issei said as he watched everyone fighting. So this is Loki, huh? He said calmly as he looked at the god. I honestly thought he would be more imposing, he said, slightly disappointed. But well, not everything can be expected from a god. Saying that, Issei shows one of his fingers as a sadistic smile appears on his face. Why don't I give him a little wave? And from the tip of his finger a large red energy began to form until it took the shape of a red baseball. Red.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.